When my own daughter called me a burden in front of our entire family, I laughed until my sides ached. 3 days later, I was signing papers that would make her homeless. That's when I realized life isn't just a stage. It's a goddamn coliseum where only the prepared survive. If you're watching this, subscribe now and tell me in the comments if you've ever had family betray you. Trust me, you'll want to see how this ends. The silence was suffocating. 20 pairs of eyes locked onto me as my daughter Victoria's words hung in the air like poison gas. Go get a job and stop being such a burden. My fork hovered midway to my mouth, gravy dripping back onto my plate in slow motion. My brother-in-law Raymond cleared his throat. My sister Margaret suddenly found her napkin fascinating. Victoria's husband Derek smirked behind his wine glass. The family dinner, meant to mark 6 months since my husband Edward's death, had transformed into my public execution. I set my fork down carefully, the tiny clink against fine china deafening in the silence. At 62, I'd spent 40 years building this life, this home, this family. I'd buried my husband after watching cancer devour him for 18 months. I'd drained our savings on experimental treatments that failed. I'd sold my jewelry piece by piece to keep up with the mortgage. And now my daughter, my beautiful, Harvard-educated daughter, who I'd sacrificed everything for, was calling me a burden. I felt something bubble up from deep within me. It started as a tremor in my chest, worked its way up my throat, and emerged as a single, unexpected sound. A laugh. One laugh became two, then cascaded into uncontrollable, table-shaking hysterics. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, until I could barely breathe. "Mom," Victoria's confident sneer faltered. "Have you lost your mind?" I dabbed the corners of my eyes with my napkin. "Sweetheart," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake inside me, "find yourself a new place to live." "What?" Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. "This is my house too. Dad would have wanted. Your father," I cut in, "would be ashamed of you right now." I stood up, legs surprisingly steady. "Dinner is over. Thank you all for coming." As I walked from the dining room, I heard the whisper start. "Poor Eleanor. She's having a breakdown. Victoria's right. She can't manage on her own. She'll lose the house. Someone should do something." Let them whisper. Let them wonder. Let them worry. None of them knew about the gas station on Maple Street, the one I'd stopped at on a whim 7 days ago. None of them knew about the 5 lottery tickets I'd purchased with my last $20. None of them knew that ticket number 4 had matched all 6 numbers, turning my $20 into $5 million. I closed my bedroom door, leaned against it, and slid to the floor. Only then did I allow my mask to crack, the tears flowing freely. Not from humiliation, from rage. Pure, molten rage that burned through my veins and seared my heart. The daughter I had raised, the child I had sacrificed everything for, had just declared me worthless to the world. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Victoria's designer heels clicking down the hallway past my bedroom. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with plans, calculations, and the occasional flash of her smug face at dinner. I waited until I heard the front door close before I got up. Victoria worked at her husband's family's investment firm, playing at being a financial analyst while Derek's father paid her 3 times what she was worth. They lived with me because it was practical, their word for free. In the kitchen, I found a note stuck to the refrigerator in Victoria's precise handwriting. "Mom, you clearly need help. I've made an appointment with Dr. Lewis for you on Thursday. Derek and I think it's time to discuss assisted living options. We can't keep worrying about you like this." I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. Then I retrieved my cell phone and made 3 calls, to my bank, to a lawyer, and to a real estate agent. "Mrs. Blackwood," said Walter Green, my late husband's attorney and friend of 30 years. "I must say your call is a surprise. Edward's estate has been settled for months now." "This isn't about Edward's estate," I replied. "This is about my lottery winnings." There was a pause. "I beg your pardon?" $5 million, Walter. I need to protect it." Another, longer pause. "Eleanor, are you quite all right? After last night's incident, Margaret called me. She's concerned about your mental state." Of course she had. Margaret, my younger sister by 3 years, had always aligned herself with whoever held the most power. Once it had been me. Now, apparently, it was Victoria.
I'm perfectly sane, Walter.
Check the winning numbers from last Tuesday against ticket number 74683921. I'll hold. I could hear the skepticism in a silence, the tapping of keys. Then more silence. My God, he finally whispered. Eleanor, do you have the ticket secured? Safe deposit box at First National. I may be grieving, Walter, but I'm not stupid. Does Victoria know? I closed my eyes briefly. No one knows. And I'd like to keep it that way until everything is arranged. Arranged? I want to transfer ownership of the house into my name alone. Edward left it to both Victoria and me, but I want full control. That's complicated. Victoria would need to sign off on. Then uncomplicate it, Walter. That's what I pay you for. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Walter's office as he outlined my options. The simplest approach is to buy Victoria's share of the house, he explained. Given the current market value and her 50% stake, you need to offer approximately $450,000. I nodded. Do it. She might refuse. She won't. Victoria and Derek have been looking at mansions in Brentwood for months. They'll jump at the cash. Walter leaned forward. Eleanor, may I speak frankly? When have you ever not? What exactly happened last night? Margaret mentioned a scene at dinner, but she was vague on details. I studied my old friend's face. Walter had stood beside Edward and me through everything. Our wedding, Victoria's birth, Edward's funeral. His gray hair had thinned, his face had lined, but his eyes remained sharp as ever. My daughter called me a burden in front of our entire family, I said flatly. She suggested I get a job at 62 after spending the last 2 years caring for her dying father. Walter's expression darkened. I see. No, you don't. Not yet. I leaned forward. She's been waiting for me to fail, Walter. Counting on it. She and Derek have been managing my finances since Edward died, which really means restricting my access to my own money while they renovate the kitchen and buy new cars. Eleanor. 3 months ago, I overheard them discussing nursing homes. Victoria said, and I quote, "Once Mom burns through her savings, we can sell the house and use the money for a decent facility." She's been planning to put me away, Walter. Her own mother. Walter removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. What do you want to do? Everything, I said simply. I want to do everything. The next few days passed in a strange, tense dance. Victoria continued to strut around the house, making pointed comments about my mental state and having whispered phone conversations with relatives about my situation. I smiled pleasantly and said nothing. Meanwhile, I was busy. The Lottery Commission had processed my claim, arranging for the funds to be transferred discreetly into newly established accounts that Victoria couldn't access. Walter had drawn up the paperwork to buy out Victoria's share of the house and was preparing documents to protect my assets. I also hired a private investigator. Find out everything about Derek Cunningham's business dealings. I instructed Malcolm Reeves, a former detective recommended by Walter. His family's investment firm, his personal finances, his extracurricular activities. Everything. Malcolm raised an eyebrow but asked no questions. Timeline. As soon as possible. I'll pay whatever it costs. On Thursday morning, Victoria reminded me about the appointment with Dr. Lewis. Don't forget, Mom. 2 o'clock. I've taken the afternoon off to drive you. How thoughtful, I replied, sipping my tea. But that won't be necessary. I've canceled the appointment. Victoria's smile froze. You what? Canceled it. I don't need to see Dr. Lewis. Mom, after your behavior at dinner. My behavior? I set my cup down with deliberate care. You mean when my daughter publicly humiliated me and I had the audacity to laugh about it? Victoria's cheeks flushed. You're twisting things. Everyone is worried about you. Living alone in this big house, no income, no purpose. I have a perfectly good purpose, Victoria. It's just not one you'd understand. She crossed her arms. And what's that supposed to mean? I smiled. It means I'm busy today. Don't wait up. The meeting with my financial advisor took most of the afternoon. Timothy Hodges had managed Edward's modest portfolio for years, but he never dealt with sums like what I was bringing him now. Mrs. Blackwood, this changes everything about your financial situation, he said, eyes wide as he reviewed the lottery documentation. We need to discuss tax implications, investment strategies, wealth management. I understand, Timothy. But first, I need to secure my immediate concerns. I outlined my plans, buying Victoria out of the house, setting up trusts for my future security, and establishing a charitable foundation in Edward's name. Timothy took copious notes, occasionally glancing up at me with new respect in his eyes. May I ask why the secrecy, he ventured. Most lottery winners make announcements, hold press conferences. Most lottery winners lose everything within 5 years, I countered. I have no intention of being one of them. What I didn't say was that I wanted to see Victoria's face when she realized what she'd thrown away. I wanted to watch her world collapse the way mine had when my own child declared me worthless. Was it petty? Perhaps. Full? Maybe. But justice rarely comes without a price. When I returned home that evening, the house was dark except for a light in the kitchen. I found Victoria sitting at the island counter, a glass of wine in her hand. Where have you been? She demanded. I've been calling you all day. I set my purse down. I had appointments. What appointments? With who? Whom? I corrected automatically. Harvard education, and she still made that mistake. My appointments are my business, Victoria. She stood up, swaying slightly.
Not her first glass of wine, then.
No, they're my business too. Derek and I are responsible for you now. I felt my temper flare, but kept my voice even. I'm a grown woman, not a child. A grown woman who can't pay her own bills. Victoria's voice rose. Dad left this mess for us to clean up. You have no job, no skills, no savings. Is that what you think? I interrupted. That I have nothing? I've seen the accounts, Mom. I know exactly how much is left. Barely enough for property taxes this year. What do you think is going to happen when that runs out? I studied my daughter's face. Edward's high cheekbones, my green eyes, all assembled into a mask of entitlement I barely recognized. What happened to you? I asked softly. When did you become someone who would throw her own mother away? Victoria rolled her eyes. God, so dramatic. Nobody's throwing you away. We're being realistic. Realistic, I repeated. Like when you told Aunt Margaret that you were thinking of converting my bedroom into a home gym once I'm situated elsewhere? Her eyes widened slightly. You heard that. I hear everything in this house, Victoria. I always have. She recovered quickly, shoulders straightening. Then you know we're right. This house is too big for you. You can't afford it. The responsible thing is to sell it and use the money for your care. My care, I echoed. You mean locking me away in some facility while you and Derek live in my house? It's half my house, she snapped. Dad left it to both of us. I smiled then, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. For now.
Victoria Froned.
What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out soon enough. I turned to leave the kitchen. By the way, Walter Green will be coming by tomorrow with some paperwork. Make sure you're home around noon. Wait, what paperwork?
Mom.
I continued walking, her demands fading behind me. In my bedroom, I closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. Playing this game was draining but necessary. Everything had to be done properly, legally, irrefutably. My phone buzzed with a text from Malcolm Reeves. Found something. Need to meet tomorrow. I texted back, 11 a.m. The cafe on Hillcrest. Then I changed into my nightgown, crawled into the bed I'd shared with Edward for 38 years, and allowed myself exactly 5 minutes of tears before falling into a dreamless sleep. The cafe on Hillcrest was nearly empty when Malcolm arrived the next morning. He slid into the booth across from me, placing a manila envelope on the table. Coffee, I offered. He shook his head. Already wired. Been up all night following this trail. That interesting, is it? Malcolm leaned forward. Mrs. Blackwood, How well do you know your son-in-law? Well enough to dislike him, I replied honestly.
Why? He tapped the envelope.
Derek Cunningham has been embezzling from his family's firm for at least 3 years. Despite everything, I felt a chill. Are you certain? Beyond doubt. He's created phantom investment accounts, skimming client funds to support a lifestyle well beyond even his considerable salary. Malcolm's eyes met mine. And your daughter is a signatory on all the accounts where the money lands. I closed my eyes briefly. Victoria is involved? At minimum, she's benefiting. The money has funded luxury vacations, jewelry, that sports car she drives. Whether she knows the source is unclear, but she knows, I said quietly. Victoria has always known exactly where her money comes from. Malcolm studied me. There's more. The firm is under SEC investigation. Rumors only at this point, but solid ones. If it breaks open, both Derek and Victoria could face federal charges. I took a sip of my now cold coffee, mind racing. How much time before this becomes public? Hard to say. Could be months, could be days. The SEC moves on its own schedule. I nodded, reaching for the envelope. May I keep this? It's your copy. All the evidence, account numbers, transaction histories. Thank you, Malcolm. You've been thorough. He hesitated. Mrs. Blackwood, whatever you're planning, just be careful. People get desperate when cornered. I smiled thinly. I'm counting on it. Walter arrived at the house precisely at noon, leather briefcase in hand. I welcomed him into the living room where Victoria was waiting, her expression a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. What's this about, Walter? She demanded. Perhaps your mother should explain, Walter replied diplomatically. I sat down across from Victoria. I'm buying your share of the house. She blinked.
What?
I'm exercising my right to buy out your 50% ownership. Walter has prepared the paperwork. The full market value of your share, $450,000, will be transferred to your account upon signing. Victoria stared at me, then at Walter, then back to me. This is absurd. You don't have that kind of money. I do now. From where? Did you take out a loan? Mortgage the house? That's insane. I won the lottery, I said simply. The words hung in the air between us. Victoria's face went through a rapid succession of expressions: disbelief, shock, calculation, and finally, a terrible understanding. You what? She whispered. $5 million. Last Tuesday. The ticket is already claimed and the money secured. Victoria's face had gone pale. And you didn't tell me? Why would I? You've made it abundantly clear that you consider me nothing but a burden. Walter cleared his throat. The paperwork, ladies. Victoria ignored him, leaning forward. Mom, you know I didn't mean... Oh, I think you meant exactly what you said. I nodded to Walter. Show her where to sign. This is ridiculous. Victoria snapped, but her eyes kept darting to the papers Walter was arranging. I'm not signing anything. That's your choice, I said calmly. But then I'll be forced to sell my share to an outside buyer. I've already had interest from a developer who wants to tear down the house and build condominiums. Victoria's eyes widened in horror. You wouldn't. Try me. Walter slid the papers toward her. Miss Blackwood, if you'll just review these sections highlighted in yellow. Victoria's hands trembled as she took the documents. This isn't fair, she muttered. Fair. I laughed softly. Was it fair when you humiliated me at dinner? Was it fair when you plotted to put me in a home and take my house? I was trying to help you. No, Victoria. You were helping yourself. You always have. She glared at me, then down at the papers. What if I refuse? Then things will become very unpleasant, I said. For everyone. Something in my tone must have conveyed the truth of my threat, because Victoria's defiance crumbled. She grabbed a pen from Walter's outstretched hand and signed the documents with angry, jagged strokes. There. Are you happy now? She spat. Not yet, I replied. But I'm getting there. Walter gathered the signed papers. The funds will be transferred by end of business today. I'll file these with the county immediately. Thank you, Walter. I stood up. Now, Victoria, we need to discuss your living arrangements. She stared at me. What about them? I want you and Derek out of my house within 30 days. 30 days? That's impossible. We can't find a place that quickly. With $450,000 in your account, I'm sure you'll manage. I smiled coldly. Unless, of course, there's some reason you can't use that money? Victoria's expression flickered, just for an instant, but enough to confirm my suspicions. The embezzled funds had created a paper trail they couldn't risk disturbing with a large, legitimate deposit. We'll need more time, she insisted. 30 days, I repeated. Not 1 day more. Victoria stood up, hands clenched at her sides. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Punishing your own daughter? No more than you enjoyed calling me a burden. Her face contorted with rage. You won't get away with this. Dad would never have. Your father, I cut in, knew exactly who you were becoming. It broke his heart. Victoria recoiled, as if I'd slapped her. That's a lie. Is it? Why do you think he left half the house to me instead of all to you? He was protecting me from you, Victoria. He just didn't live long enough to tell you so. Tears sprang to her eyes. Whether from anger or pain, I couldn't tell. I hate you, she whispered. I know, I replied softly. I've known for some time now. She stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. Walter looked at me, concern etched in his features. Eleanor, are you all right? I sank back into my chair, suddenly drained. No, Walter. I don't think I am. He sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on mine. This path you're on, it won't bring Edward back. I know that. This isn't about Edward. It's about me. I met his gaze steadily. It's about surviving what comes next. What do you mean? I reached for my purse and pulled out the manila envelope Malcolm had given me. There's something you need to see. That evening, I sat alone in Edward's study, surrounded by his books, his papers, the lingering scent of his cologne. I'd avoided this room since his death, but tonight I needed his presence, however phantom. What would you do, Ed? I whispered to the empty chair across from me. Our daughter is not who we raised her to be. The silence offered no answers, but I could almost hear Edward's voice. Do what's right, Ellie. But remember who you are. The problem was, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. The dutiful wife, the loving mother, the grieving widow, those identities had been stripped away, leaving what? A woman with $5 million and a thirst for justice that tasted suspiciously like revenge. My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. Margaret's name flashed on the screen. Eleanor. My sister's voice was tight with concern. What on earth is going on? Victoria just called me in hysterics. Did she tell you why? Some nonsense about you winning the lottery and kicking her out of the house. She's not making sense. It's not nonsense, Margaret. Every word is true. Silence, then. You won the lottery? $5 million. My God. Another pause. And you're making Victoria move out? I bought her share of the house. She and Derek have 30 days to find new accommodations. Eleanor, that's extreme. She's your daughter. Yes, she is. And I'm her mother. The burden she was planning to discard. Margaret sighed. That dinner was unfortunate, but it wasn't just the dinner, Margaret. Victoria and Derek have been planning to sell this house out from under me and put me in a nursing home. They've been waiting for me to run out of money. I'm sure that's not. I heard them discussing it, Margaret. Multiple times.
Oh.
My sister fell silent. I didn't know. No one did. I didn't want to believe it myself. I ran a hand over Edward's desk, tracing the familiar scratch in the wood. But there's more. Derek has been embezzling from his family's firm. Victoria's involved, at least peripherally.
What?
How do you know this? I hired an investigator. The evidence is conclusive. Margaret's shocked silence stretched between us. Finally, she asked, "What are you going to do?" I haven't decided yet. Eleanor, be careful. If what you're saying is true, they're dangerous. I know. I closed my eyes briefly. That's why I need your help. My help?
How?
I need somewhere to stay for a few days. Somewhere Victoria wouldn't think to look. Margaret hesitated only briefly. The lake house. No one's used it since last summer. The key is still under the ceramic frog. Thank you, Margaret. Eleanor, whatever you're planning, please be careful. I ended the call and sat in the darkness, thinking. The confrontation with Victoria had gone as expected, but the game was far from over. Derek didn't yet know about the lottery winnings or the house transfer. Victoria would tell him tonight, and then the real danger would begin. I packed a small bag with essentials, tucked the manila envelope of evidence into my purse, and wrote a brief note that I left on the kitchen counter. Gone to visit an old friend. Back soon. As I drove toward Margaret's lake house, 30 miles outside the city, my phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from Victoria. I ignored them all. The lake house was cold and musty when I arrived, but the electricity worked and the generator kicked in when I flipped the main switch. I made up the bed in the master bedroom, heated a can of soup I found in the pantry, and settled in to wait. I didn't have to wait long. Shortly after midnight, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. We need to talk.
Now. Derek.
I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, another text. You have no idea what you've done. Fix this or regret it. I blocked the number. At 1:37 a.m., the landline at the lake house rang, startling me from a light doze. I stared at it, heart pounding. Very few people had this number. I let it ring until the ancient answering machine picked up. Derek's voice, slurred with what sounded like alcohol, filled the room. I know you're there, Eleanor. Pick up the goddamn phone. You think you've won? You think this is over? It's just beginning. You have no idea what's coming for you. No idea at all. The message cut off abruptly. I sat motionless in the darkness, listening to the silence that followed. Derek was right about one thing. This was just beginning. In the morning, I would call Walter with new instructions. I would contact Malcolm for additional security measures. I would prepare for war. But tonight, in the stillness of Margaret's lake house, surrounded by the gentle lapping of water against the shore, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what I had set in motion. My daughter hated me. My son-in-law threatened me. My family was shattered beyond repair. And yet, somewhere beneath the grief and fear, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before Edward's diagnosis.
Power.
Not just the power of money, though that was part of it. The power of standing up for myself. The power of refusing to be discarded. I'd spent my life being what everyone needed me to be. Dutiful daughter, supportive wife, selfless mother. Now, at 62, I was finally becoming someone else. Myself. I just hoped I would survive the transformation. As dawn broke over the lake, my phone chimed with a text from Walter. Turn on the news. Channel 7.
Now.
I fumbled for the remote and switched on the small television in the corner. The morning news was running a breaking story, the headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Cunningham Investment Group raided by FBI in massive fraud investigation. The camera showed agents removing boxes from the gleaming office building downtown as the reporter's voice narrated. Sources say the investigation involves millions in client funds allegedly misappropriated by senior executives, including Derek Cunningham, son of founder Howard Cunningham. Arrests are expected within hours. I sat back, stunned. I hadn't done this. I hadn't even had time to decide what to do with Malcolm's evidence. Someone had beaten me to it. My phone rang. Walter again. Did you see? He asked without preamble. I'm watching now. Walter, I didn't. I know you didn't, but someone did.
Who?
Walter's voice lowered. Howard Cunningham contacted me this morning. Apparently, an anonymous package arrived at his home yesterday evening containing evidence of his son's embezzlement. He turned everything over to the authorities immediately. My mind raced. An anonymous package? With a note that said, "Ask your son about Eleanor Blackwood's lottery winnings." I closed my eyes, piecing it together. Malcolm. Possibly. Or someone else with access to the same information. What happens now? The FBI will want to speak with you, as Derek's mother-in-law. They'll want to know if you had any knowledge of the scheme. I didn't. Not until recently. Tell them exactly that. But Eleanor, Walter hesitated. Victoria's involvement is still unclear. If she knowingly participated, I understand, I said quietly. After ending the call, I sat watching the news unfold, numb with shock. This wasn't how I had planned things. I had wanted control, wanted to decide when and how the truth came out. Now events were racing ahead without me, spinning beyond my grasp. My phone rang again, Victoria's number. After moments' hesitation, I answered. Mom, her voice was high, panicked. Are you watching the news? They've arrested Derek. I'm watching. It's all a mistake. A misunderstanding. Derek says his father is trying to frame him because of some disagreement they had. Stop, Victoria, I interrupted. It's not a misunderstanding. Derek has been embezzling for years. Silence, then. How would you know that? I hired an investigator after you called me a burden. I wanted to understand what was happening in my own house. You... Her voice faltered. You did this? You set Derek up.
No.
I was gathering information. Someone else acted on it. I don't believe you. Victoria's voice rose hysterically. This is your revenge, isn't it? For what I said at dinner. You're destroying our lives over one stupid comment. Victoria, listen to me. The FBI has evidence of Derek's crimes dating back 3 years. This has nothing to do with our dinner. Liar. You've hated Derek from the beginning. You've always been jealous of our success, our happiness. Victoria. They're saying I might be implicated, she shrieked. My name is on those accounts, Mom. Do you understand what that means? I could go to prison. My heart constricted despite everything. Were you involved, Victoria? Did you know where the money was coming from? Her ragged breathing was the only sound for several long seconds. I have to go, she finally whispered. Victoria, wait. The line went dead. I sat motionless, the phone still pressed to my ear, as the first tendrils of true fear crept through me. This wasn't the controlled confrontation I had planned. This was chaos, spiraling in directions I couldn't predict. If Victoria was implicated in Derek's crimes, she could face serious charges. My daughter, my only child, could go to prison. Was that what I wanted? Revenge, yes, but this kind of destruction? I wasn't sure anymore. The lines between justice and vengeance were blurring, my moral compass spinning wildly in the storm I'd helped create. On the television, they were showing Derek being led from the building in handcuffs, his face a mask of rage as he shouted at the reporters. The scene cut to exterior shots of my house, with police cars parked outside. They were looking for Victoria. I grabbed my purse and keys, heading for the door. Whatever had happened between us, whatever she had done, she was still my daughter. I needed to find her before the authorities did. But as I reached for the doorknob, a shadow fell across the frosted glass pane. Someone was on the porch. I froze, heart hammering. The security system Margaret had installed last year wasn't activated. I hadn't thought to set it. A key scraped in the lock. The door swung open. Victoria stood on the threshold, mascara streaking down her pale cheeks, a wild look in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Hello, Mother, she said, her voice eerily calm. We need to talk. Behind her, I could see her car parked haphazardly on the gravel drive, one wheel on the grass. In her right hand, partially concealed by the folds of her coat, was something that glinted in the morning light. A gun. It's time, Victoria said softly, raising the weapon, for you to fix what you've broken. Time slows down in moments of true terror. As Victoria stepped into the lake house, gun in hand, I noticed absurd details. The smudged mascara beneath her left eye, the torn button on her coat, the slight tremor in her perfectly manicured fingers as they gripped the weapon. Victoria, I said, keeping my voice steady. Put the gun down. She laughed, a brittle, unhinged sound that echoed in the small entryway. That's all you have to say. Put the gun down? No apology for destroying my life? I didn't destroy your life. I took a careful step backward. Derek's crimes did that. Crimes you exposed. She advanced, shutting the door behind her with her foot. Everything was fine until you decided to play detective. Everything was not fine. You were planning to throw me away like garbage. Victoria's face contorted. One comment at dinner. One stupid comment, and you burn our entire world to the ground. This isn't about the dinner. I kept backing up slowly until my legs hit the sofa. This is about years of disrespect, of manipulation, of treating me like I'm nothing. You don't understand anything. Victoria raised the gun higher, pointing it directly at my chest. You have no idea what's at stake. Then tell me, I said, trying to keep her talking. My phone was in my pocket, but I had no way to call for help without her seeing. Help me understand. She stared at me, breathing hard. For a moment, I thought I saw my little girl beneath the rage, the child who had once climbed into my lap after skinning her knee, seeking comfort. But then her eyes hardened again. The money is gone, she said flatly. What money? The lottery winnings?
No.
Victoria gestured impatiently with the gun. The money Derek redirected. From the company. It's gone. A chill ran through me. Gone where? Investments. Bad ones.
Debts.
She swallowed hard. The FBI will think I was part of it. My name is on everything. Were you part of it? Victoria's expression flickered. I didn't ask questions. We needed the money. For what? You both had good jobs, a free place to live. For appearances, she shouted. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to keep up in our circles? The right clothes, the right vacations, the right schools for the children we're supposed to be having.
Isterte her.
You did all this for status? You wouldn't understand. You and Dad were always happy with your little middle-class life, your modest home, your one vacation a year to the same boring beach house. The contempt in her voice felt like a physical blow. When had my daughter become this person? Had she always been this way, and I'd been too blind to see it? The FBI is looking for you, I said quietly. I know. Victoria's hand tightened on the gun. That's why you're going to help me. Help you how? Your lottery money. $5 million. She took another step closer. I need it. I blinked in disbelief. You want me to give you my lottery winnings? After everything you've done? I don't want it, Mother. I need it. To replace what's missing from the accounts. To fix this before it's too late. Victoria, that's not how it works. The FBI already has evidence. Replacing the money now would just be further proof of guilt. You don't know that. Her voice rose hysterically. Money fixes everything. Always has. We just need enough to make this go away. I shook my head slowly. I can't give you the money. Can't or won't. The gun wavered in her hand. Your own daughter is facing prison, and you won't help? The money wouldn't help. It would only implicate me in the cover-up. Victoria's eyes narrowed. So, you're choosing yourself. Again. I'm choosing the truth. She laughed bitterly. The truth.
Right.
Since when do you care about the truth? Your whole life has been about appearances. The perfect wife. The perfect mother. The perfect victim. That's not true. Isn't it? You loved playing the martyr for Dad. Poor Eleanor, sacrificing everything for her sick husband. You wallowed in it. You still are. Each word was a knife, expertly wielded to find the softest, most vulnerable places. And the worst part was, beneath the cruelty, there lurked a grain of truth. I had found a kind of identity in sacrifice, in being needed. Had that somehow contributed to the woman Victoria had become? I'm sorry if that's how you see me, I said finally. But I won't give you the money. Victoria's expression hardened. Then you leave me no choice. She raised the gun higher, arms straightening. I closed my eyes, a lifetime of regrets flashing through my mind. Edward's face. Victoria as a child. Opportunities missed. Words unsaid. The gunshot, when it came, was deafening in the small room. But I felt no pain. I opened my eyes to see Victoria staring at me, her face a mask of shock. The gun hung limply at her side. I can't do it, she whispered. I can't shoot my own mother. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by caution. Victoria was unstable, unpredictable. Give me the gun, sweetheart, I said gently, extending my hand. For a moment, she seemed ready to comply. Then her expression changed again, hardening into resolve.
No, she said.
You're right. Shooting you wouldn't solve anything. She raised the gun again, but this time, pointed it at her own temple. But this will. Terror seized me. Victoria, no. Why not? It's over. Derek's in jail. The FBI is looking for me. My reputation is destroyed. What's left? Your life, I pleaded. Your future. What future? Prison? Disgrace? She laughed hollowly. No thanks. We can find a way through this. Together. Together? Victoria's finger tightened on the trigger. You've made it very clear we're not on the same side. We're family, I insisted. Whatever has happened between us, that hasn't changed. Hasn't it? You threw me out of my home. You exposed Derek's dealings. You ruined everything. I didn't expose Derek. Someone else did that. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Who? I don't know. It was mostly true. I had suspicions but no certainty. But it wasn't me. I was still deciding what to do with the information. Deciding whether to destroy me or not, she said bitterly. How generous. Victoria, please. Put down the gun. We can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. It's over. Her hand trembled. Unless. Unless what? Unless you help me run. Her eyes held a desperate gleam. With your lottery money, I could disappear. Start over somewhere new. Somewhere they can't find me. I stared at her. You want me to help you become a fugitive? I want you to help me survive, she shouted. Isn't that what mothers are supposed to do? Protect their children? The question hit me like a physical blow. What was I supposed to do? Help my daughter escape justice? Or stand by while she destroyed herself? There are other options, I said carefully. You could turn yourself in. Cooperate with the authorities. If you weren't the mastermind, if you can help them understand what happened. You want me to betray Derek? Victoria laughed harshly. You really don't understand anything, do you? I understand that running will only make things worse. Worse than prison? Than having my life torn apart in the press? The Cunningham name dragged through the mud. The Cunningham name is already in the mud, Victoria. That's Derek's doing, not yours. She shook her head violently. I can't. I won't. Either help me escape, or I'll end it right here. The gun was still pressed to her temple, her finger on the trigger. One moment of desperation, and my daughter would be gone forever. All right, I said, making a split-second decision. I'll help you. Victoria's eyes widened in surprise. You will?
Yes.
But not like this. Not with a gun to your head. I held out my hand again. Give me the weapon, and we'll talk about what comes next. She hesitated, suspicion warring with hope on her face. How do I know you won't just call the FBI as soon as I'm unarmed? Because I'm your mother. Whatever has happened between us, whatever you've done, that hasn't changed. For a long moment, she stood frozen, the gun still pressed against her skin. Then, slowly, she lowered the weapon and placed it in my outstretched hand. My fingers closed around the cold metal. I quickly checked the safety and put the gun on the side table, out of her reach. Thank you, I said quietly. Victoria collapsed onto the sofa, sudden exhaustion etching lines into her face that made her look far older than her 34 years. What now? She asked hollowly. First, we call Walter. Her head snapped up. Your lawyer?
No.
Absolutely not. Victoria, we need legal advice. Walter knows the situation, and he's discreet. He'll tell me to turn myself in. Probably, I acknowledged. But he'll also help us understand all the options. She stared at me suspiciously. Why are you doing this? After everything that's happened, why help me now? I sat down beside her, careful to maintain some distance. Because beneath all of this, the lottery, the house, Derek's crimes, there's one truth that hasn't changed. You're my daughter. And I won't watch you destroy yourself if I can prevent it. Victoria's eyes filled with tears for the first time since she'd arrived. I've done terrible things, Mom. I know. Things you don't even know about. Things that would make you hate me. I took a deep breath. Try me. She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. The night Dad died. I was supposed to be there. At the hospital. You called me, said it wouldn't be long. I remembered. The worst night of my life. Edward slipping away while I held his hand, begging him not to leave me. You said you were stuck in traffic, I said quietly. I lied. Victoria's voice was barely audible. I was at a party. A stupid, meaningless work party. I saw your calls and I ignored them because I couldn't face it.
Couldn't face him like that.
And then when you called again to say he was gone, I pretended I was just pulling into the hospital parking lot. The revelation struck me like a physical blow. All this time, I'd believed Victoria had just been unlucky with traffic, had missed her father's final moments by cruel chance. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice strained. Because you should know who you're trying to help. Victoria looked up, her face streaked with tears. I'm not worth it, Mom. I never have been. The pain in her voice was raw, genuine in a way I hadn't heard from her in years. Beneath the entitled exterior, the cruel words, the manipulations, there was still a wounded human being. My child. We all make mistakes, Victoria. Mistakes. She laughed bitterly. I abandoned my dying father. I helped my husband steal millions. I threatened my own mother with a gun. Those aren't mistakes. They're choices. Terrible ones. Yes, I agreed. They are. And now you have another choice to make. Run and keep running for the rest of your life. Or face what you've done and try to make amends. Victoria stared at the floor. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. I reached out tentatively and took her hand. She didn't pull away. But you don't have to face it alone. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of all that had happened, all that had been said, settling around us like dust after an explosion. Nothing was fixed. Nothing was forgotten. But something had shifted. I'll call Walter, I said finally. Victoria nodded, resigned. Okay. Walter arrived at the lake house 2 hours later, his face grave as he took in the situation. Victoria, hollow-eyed and subdued on the sofa. Me, still shaken but resolute. The gun, now unloaded and locked in a drawer. This is a serious situation, he said after I explained what had happened. Victoria, the FBI is actively looking for you. Every hour you don't come forward makes things worse. I know, she whispered. Derek has been arrested, along with 3 other executives. Howard Cunningham is cooperating fully with the investigation. He's quite determined to see his son face consequences. Victoria flinched. He always hated Derek. Said he wasn't worthy of the Cunningham name. Perhaps he had reasons, Walter said mildly. The embezzlement scheme was extensive and sophisticated. Millions of dollars diverted over years. How much does the FBI know about Victoria's involvement? I asked. Walter adjusted his glasses. That's unclear. Your name is on accounts where embezzled funds were deposited, he said, addressing Victoria directly. But that doesn't automatically prove knowledge or intent. What are my options? She asked, voice small. Legally, turn yourself in immediately with counsel present. Cooperate fully. Depending on your actual level of involvement and what you can tell them about the broader scheme, you might be able to negotiate a plea deal. And if I don't turn myself in? Walter's expression hardened. Then you become a fugitive. You'd be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. Any future you might build would be based on lies, always at risk of collapsing. And when, not if, but when you're caught, the consequences would be far more severe. Victoria closed her eyes briefly. What about the money? If it could be replaced? That ship has sailed, Walter interrupted firmly. The investigation is already public. Attempting to replace the funds now would only create additional evidence of guilt and potentially implicate your mother in a conspiracy. So, I'm going to prison, Victoria said flatly. Not necessarily. With the right legal strategy, cooperation, and considering this is your first offense. First that you know of, she muttered. Walter raised an eyebrow but continued. You might be able to avoid incarceration entirely. Community service, probation, fines. It depends on many factors. I leaned forward. Walter, what if I use some of the lottery money for Victoria's defense? The best lawyers.
Mom, no. Victoria interrupted.
You can't spend your money fixing my mistakes. I stared at her, surprised by the objection.
Victoria. No.
She shook her head firmly. I've taken enough from you. Your time, your home, your dignity. I won't take your money too. Walter cleared his throat. There's another consideration. Eleanor, if you use your lottery winnings to fund Victoria's defense, it could create the impression that you're somehow complicit in the embezzlement scheme. Given the timing of your win, the authorities might wonder if it's actually embezzled money being disguised as lottery winnings. That's absurd, I protested. I have the ticket, the official claim forms. I'm not saying they'd be right, Walter clarified. Just that it could complicate matters. The optics would be problematic. Victoria stood up suddenly. I need some air. Victoria. I began, alarmed. I'm not running, she assured me wearily. I just need to think. I'll stay on the porch. After she left, Walter turned to me, his expression grave. Eleanor, I need to ask you something, and I need the absolute truth. Of course. Did you send the evidence of Derek's embezzlement to Howard Cunningham? I shook my head.
No.
I was still deciding what to do with it. Then who did? I don't know for certain. Malcolm Reeves had access to the information. Perhaps he took matters into his own hands. Walter's eyes narrowed. Why would he do that? I sighed. When I hired him, I was emotional. I might have implied that I wanted to see Victoria and Derek face consequences for how they treated me. He may have thought he was doing me a favor. That's troubling, Eleanor. If Malcolm acted on your behalf, without explicit instructions, but based on your implied desires, it could still create legal complications for you. Fear coiled in my stomach. What kind of complications? If Victoria claims you orchestrated this entire situation, the exposure of the embezzlement scheme, the timing with your lottery win, the house purchase, it could potentially be construed as a form of extortion or blackmail. That's ridiculous. I never threatened them with the information. I never even told them I had it. But you did use your knowledge of their financial crimes to pressure Victoria into selling her share of the house, didn't you? I stared at him, remembering my words to Victoria during the signing. Then things will become very unpleasant. For everyone. I implied I knew something, I admitted. But I never explicitly threatened to expose the embezzlement. Walter sighed. Intent can be difficult to prove either way. The timing is certainly suspicious. If Victoria wanted to retaliate, she could create serious problems for you. Would she do that? Turn on her own mother? People do desperate things when cornered, Eleanor. You know that better than most. I thought of Victoria holding the gun to her own head, the wild look in her eyes. Yes, I knew exactly how dangerous desperation could be. What should I do? I asked. For now, keep Victoria calm and cooperative. The best outcome for everyone is if she turns herself in voluntarily and works with the authorities. If she tries to implicate you out of spite, we'll deal with that if and when it happens. I nodded, feeling suddenly exhausted. And the lottery money? Is secure for now. But I'd advise against making any large transfers or significant purchases until this situation is resolved. We don't want to give the appearance of suspicious financial activity. Through the window, I could see Victoria sitting on the porch steps, her back to the house, shoulders hunched against the chill. She brought a gun, Walter, I said quietly. My own daughter threatened me with a gun. Walter's expression softened. Are you sure you want to help her, Eleanor? After everything she's done? I didn't answer immediately. The question deserved careful consideration. Did I want to help Victoria because I truly believed in redemption? Or was it just maternal instinct overriding common sense? Or perhaps something else entirely? A need to prove I was the better person, to claim moral victory in our twisted power struggle? I don't know. I admitted finally. But I know I don't want to see her destroy herself. Whatever she's done, however she's hurt me, I can't just stand by and watch her fall. Walter nodded, understanding in his eyes. Then let's make sure she makes the right choice. For her sake, and for yours. Victoria agreed to turn herself in the next morning. Walter arranged everything, a meeting with the FBI at his office, with a criminal defense attorney present. The night at the lake house passed in strange silence, neither of us knowing what to say to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. I lay awake in the master bedroom, listening to Victoria's restless movements on the sofa in the living room. Would she run during the night? The car keys were hidden, but she could walk to the main road, hitchhike, disappear. The gun was securely locked away, but there were other ways she could harm herself if desperation overcame her again. Shortly after midnight, my bedroom door creaked open. Victoria stood in the doorway, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, looking younger and more vulnerable than I had seen her in years. "Mom," she whispered, "are you awake?" "Yes," I said, sitting up. "What is it?" She hesitated, then asked in a small voice, "Can I stay in here?" I don't want to be alone." The request transported me back 25 years, to nights when a much smaller Victoria would appear at my bedside after a nightmare, seeking comfort. Despite everything, my heart ached for her. "Of course," I said, moving over to make room. Victoria curled up on the far side of the bed, maintaining a careful distance between us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, just when I thought she might have fallen asleep, she said quietly, "I'm sorry." "For what?" I asked. "Everything. The dinner. The things I said. The gun." She paused. "Dad." I swallowed hard. "Why, Victoria? What happened to us?" "To you?" She was silent for so long I thought she might not answer. Finally, she said, "I don't know. Somewhere along the way, I started believing that appearances were everything. That success meant having more, showing more, being more than everyone else. And once I started down that path, it's never enough. I finished for her." "Never," she agreed softly. "There's always someone with a bigger house, a more expensive car, a more exotic vacation. Always something more to chase." "And Derek encouraged this?"
Victoria laughed humorlessly.
"Derek invented it. His family has been playing this game for generations. The Cunningham name, the Cunningham legacy. Everything for appearances, nothing for substance. And you went along with it." "I became it," she corrected. "The perfect Cunningham wife. Charming, beautiful, ruthless when necessary." She turned to look at me in the darkness. "I became someone you and Dad would hate." The raw honesty in her voice caught me off guard. "We could never hate you, Victoria." "Don't lie, Mom. Not now. After everything I've done, how could you not hate me?" "I hate myself." I reached across the space between us and took her hand. "Hating what you've done doesn't mean hating who you are. What if they're the same thing? What if this is just who I am now?" "I don't believe that," I said firmly. "The fact that you're here, that you're sorry, that you're willing to face consequences, that shows there's more to you than the mistakes you've made." Victoria's fingers tightened around mine. "I'm scared of prison. I know. But you're not going to face this alone. Even after everything I've done to you?" I sighed. "Family is complicated, Victoria. Love is complicated. It doesn't just disappear because we hurt each other." "It should," she whispered. "It would be easier if it did. Easier, maybe, but poorer." We lapsed into silence again, hands still joined across the divide. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. There was too much damage, too many wounds still raw and bleeding. But it was something. A foothold in the landslide. "What will you do?" Victoria asked eventually. "With the lottery money, I mean?" "I haven't decided yet. Set up college funds for Margaret's grandchildren. Travel, maybe. See the places your father and I always talked about but never visited." "You should," Victoria said softly. "Dad would want that." The mention of Edward sent a familiar pang through my chest. "I miss him," I admitted. "Every day." "Me too." Victoria's voice caught. Even when I couldn't face going to the hospital that night, it was because I couldn't bear to see him like that. To see him as anything less than the strong, invincible father I'd always known. He was still himself, even at the end, I said. Still Edward. Still your father. I know that now. But then, I was a coward. You are human, I corrected gently. We all face grief differently. Victoria was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Do you think he'd forgive me? For missing his last moments? For everything I've done since?" The question hung in the darkness between us, weighty with implication. I thought carefully before answering. Your father loved you more than anything in this world, Victoria. More than me sometimes, I think. I smiled faintly at the memory. He would be deeply disappointed in your choices. He would want you to face consequences, to make amends. But forgive you? Yes. Without hesitation. A sob escaped her, quickly stifled. I wish I could tell him I'm sorry. I think he knows, I said softly. Wherever he is. We fell silent again, the quiet punctuated only by Victoria's occasional sniffles. Eventually, her breathing deepened and slowed as sleep claimed her. I lay awake beside her, watching the moon's path across the ceiling, thinking about forgiveness, redemption, and the tangled bonds of family. Whatever tomorrow brought, for Victoria, for me, for us, nothing would ever be simple again. But perhaps, I thought as sleep finally began to claim me, simple was overrated anyway. Real life, real love, real family, they were all gloriously, painfully complex. And maybe, just maybe, that complexity was what made them worth fighting for. Morning arrived with a pale, watery sun and the sound of Walter's car in the driveway. Victoria was already up, dressed in clothes she'd borrowed from me. Too big, making her look younger, more vulnerable. She'd pulled her hair back in a simple ponytail, removed all makeup. Looking at her, I could almost see the daughter I'd known before Derek, before the ambition and entitlement had taken root. Ready? I asked as Walter knocked on the door. Victoria nodded, her face pale but composed. As I'll ever be. The ride to Walter's office was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I sat beside Victoria in the back seat, our shoulders occasionally brushing as the car rounded corners. She stared out the window, watching the familiar landscapes of our town pass by, perhaps wondering when, or if, she would see them again as a free woman. At Walter's office, two men in suits were waiting, FBI agents Hunter and Diaz. With them was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s whom Walter introduced as Patricia Winters, a criminal defense attorney he had engaged for Victoria. Mrs. Blackwood, Agent Hunter addressed me. We appreciate your assistance in bringing your daughter in. I nodded stiffly. I'm just here to support Victoria. And we respect that, Agent Diaz said smoothly. But we'll also need to speak with you at some point about your knowledge of the situation. Walter stepped forward. My client is here voluntarily and is prepared to cooperate fully. However, any questions for Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood will need to be scheduled separately, with me present. The agents exchanged glances, but didn't push the issue. Victoria, Patricia Winters said, I've reviewed the broad outlines of the case. Before we proceed, I want to be clear. My job is to protect your interests. I need you to be completely honest with me about your involvement in the embezzlement scheme. Victoria glanced at me, then back to the attorney. I want to cooperate. I want to make things right, as much as I can. That's commendable, Patricia said, but I need specifics.
How much did you know?
When did you know it? What actions did you take? Victoria took a deep breath. I knew Derek was moving money. I knew it wasn't entirely legitimate. I signed documents he asked me to sign. I spent the money. I didn't ask questions I should have asked. Patricia nodded, making notes. And did you actively participate in diverting funds? Creating false accounts? Falsifying records? No, Victoria said firmly. That was all Derek. I just benefited and looked the other way. That's a significantly different level of culpability, Patricia noted. It gives us something to work with. Agent Hunter cleared his throat. We should get started. The U.S. attorney is waiting for our report. Victoria turned to me, sudden fear in her eyes. "Mom," I squeezed her hand. "I'll be right here when you're done." She nodded, visibly steeling herself. Then, with a final glance back, she followed Patricia and the agents into Walter's conference room. Walter and I settled in his office to wait. Minutes stretched into hours. Occasionally, Walter was called in to consult, returning with tight-lipped non-answers to my questions. The waiting was excruciating. "What are they asking her?" I demanded after Walter returned from his third visit to the conference room. "Everything," he said simply. "Derek's methods. The flow of funds. Who knew what when. Is she in trouble?" Walter sighed. "Yes and no. Her level of involvement appears to be less than initially suspected. She didn't orchestrate or execute the scheme, but she benefited from it, signed documents facilitating it, and failed to report it. What does that mean for her? Best case? Probation, fines, community service. Worst case? Some jail time, but not the decades Derek is facing." I closed my eyes briefly. "When will we know?" "Not today. This is just the beginning of the process. The U.S. Attorney will review everything, decide what charges to file, what deals to offer. And in the meantime, Walter said carefully, "There's another matter we need to discuss." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. "What matter?" "I've received a call from Howard Cunningham's attorney. It seems Derek is making accusations." A chill ran through me. "What kind of accusations?" "He's claiming that you orchestrated this entire situation, that you discovered the embezzlement months ago and have been blackmailing him and Victoria, that the lottery win is fictitious, a cover story for money you extorted from them." "That's absurd. I have the lottery ticket, the official claim documentation." "I know," Walter assured me. "It's a desperate ploy from a desperate man. But it complicates things. The FBI will want to investigate these claims, if only to eliminate them as a possibility." "So, now I'm under suspicion?" I laughed bitterly. "Perfect. Not suspicion exactly. But they'll have questions. About the timing. About how you discovered the embezzlement. About Malcolm Reeves." "Malcolm was just doing his job," I insisted. "I hired him to investigate Derek, yes, but I never instructed him to send the evidence to Howard Cunningham." "Did you imply it? Suggest it?" I hesitated, remembering my conversations with Malcolm. Had I said something that could be interpreted as authorization? In my anger, my hurt, had I crossed a line without realizing it? "I don't think so," I said finally. "But I was angry, Walter. I wanted justice. I might have been less than precise in my language." Walter nodded, unsurprised. "We'll need to speak with Malcolm, clarify exactly what was said and done. In the meantime, I'm going to advise you not to discuss any of this, the lottery, the embezzlement, Malcolm's investigation, with anyone. Not even Victoria. She's my daughter. She's also potentially a witness against you, if Derek's accusations gain any traction." The very idea was like a knife to my heart. After everything, could Victoria turn on me again? The gun incident suggested she was capable of almost anything when cornered. "She wouldn't," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Walter's expression was sympathetic but firm. "Let's not test that theory. For now, keep conversations general. Supportive but non-specific. If the FBI asks to interview you, refer them to me. Don't speak with them alone, not even informally." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. The past few days had been a roller coaster of emotions and revelations, each twist more dizzying than the last. And now, it seemed, the ride was far from over. "What about Victoria?" I asked. "Where will she go after this?" "That depends on the outcome of today's interview. If the U.S. Attorney decides to charge her, there will be an arraignment. Depending on the charges, she might be released on her own recognizance, or bail might be set." "And if there's bail?" Walter gave me a warning look. Using her lottery winnings to pay Victoria's bail would raise exactly the kind of red flags we're trying to avoid. "So, what am I supposed to do? Let her sit in jail?" "If it comes to that, we'll explore options. But one step at a time, Eleanor. Let's see what happens today." 3 more hours passed before the conference room door finally opened. Victoria emerged, looking drained but oddly composed. Patricia Winters followed, her expression giving nothing away. "Well," Walter asked, standing. "We've made progress," Patricia said carefully. "Victoria has been fully cooperative. The agents will take her statement back to the U.S. attorney, who will decide next steps." "Am I under arrest?" Victoria asked directly. "Not at this time," Agent Hunter replied. "But don't leave town and stay available. We'll have more questions." Relief washed through me. Not arrested, at least not today. "Can she come home with me?" I asked. The agents exchanged glances. "That's up to her," Agent Diaz said. "But again, don't leave town." Victoria looked at me, uncertainty in her eyes. Would that be okay? After everything? Despite Walter's warnings, despite the lingering hurt and betrayal, I couldn't turn her away. "Of course," I said. "We'll figure this out together." The relief on her face was palpable. "Thank you." As the agents prepared to leave, Hunter turned to me. "Mrs. Blackwood, we'll be in touch soon to schedule an interview with you as well." "My client will be available through me," Walter interjected smoothly. "Any questions can be directed to my office." Hunter nodded, a flicker of suspicion crossing his face. "Of course. We look forward to clearing up any misunderstandings." After they left, Patricia took Victoria aside for a final consultation while Walter drew me into his office. "Remember what I said, Eleanor. Be supportive but cautious. Don't discuss specifics of the case, the lottery, or Malcolm's investigation." "I understand," I said, though the restrictions chafed. How were Victoria and I supposed to heal if we couldn't speak openly about what had happened? "And Eleanor?" Walter added, his voice softening. "Be careful. Victoria is in a precarious position. Desperate people make desperate choices." "She's my daughter, Walter." "Yes," he agreed solemnly. "That's exactly what worries me." The house felt different when we returned, quieter, emptier, yet somehow charged with unspoken tensions. Victoria moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching objects, looking at photographs, as if seeing everything for the first time. Or perhaps the last. "Are you hungry?" I asked, breaking the awkward silence. She shook her head. "Just tired. It's been intense." "Why don't you rest? Your room is still as you left it."
Victoria hesitated.
"You didn't change it? Even after?" "I haven't had time," I said simply. "Too many other things happening." She nodded, understanding the unspoken message. Too many betrayals. Too much pain. Too little time for something as mundane as redecorating. "Mom," she said quietly, "what's going to happen to me?" The vulnerability in her voice tugged at my heart, despite everything. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll face it together." "Why?" she asked, genuine confusion in her eyes. "After everything I've done, everything I said, why would you help me?" I considered the question carefully. "Because beneath all of this mess, you're still my daughter, and I still love you. That doesn't mean I'm not angry or hurt. It doesn't mean I've forgotten or forgiven everything, but it means I won't abandon you when you need me." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't deserve that." "Probably not," I agreed. "But love isn't about deserving." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I think I will lie down for a while." "Of course. I'll be here if you need anything." After Victoria went upstairs, I sank onto the sofa, the events of the past few days catching up to me all at once. The confrontation at the lake house, the gun,
The FBI.
Derek's accusations. It was all too much, too fast. My phone rang, Margaret's number. "Eleanor, where have you been?" "I've been calling for days." "It's a long story, Margaret." "Well, you'd better start telling it. The whole town is talking about Derek's arrest. And now I hear Victoria is involved too? What's going on?" I sighed, unsure how much to share even with my sister. "It's complicated, Margaret. Victoria is cooperating with the authorities. That's all I can say right now." "And the lottery? Is that true too?" "Yes." A low whistle came through the phone. $5 million. My God, Eleanor. What are you going to do with it all? I haven't decided yet. I hesitated, then asked, Margaret, did you tell anyone about the lake house? About me staying there? No, of course not. Why? Victoria found me there. I was wondering how. Margaret was silent for a moment. I might have mentioned it to Raymond, but he wouldn't have told Victoria. Raymond, my brother-in-law who had smirked behind his wine glass during the disastrous family dinner, who had always been a little too friendly with Victoria, a little too impressed by Derek's supposed financial acumen. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. It doesn't matter now. Eleanor, are you sure you're all right? You sound strange.
Ai fine.
Just tired. It's been a difficult few days. I can imagine. Listen, do you want me to come over? Keep you company? No, I said quickly. Too quickly. No, thank you.
I just need some rest.
If you're sure. Margaret sounded unconvinced. Call me if you need anything, all right? I will. Thanks, Margaret. After hanging up, I sat in silence, thinking. If Raymond had told Victoria where to find me, what else might he have shared? And with whom? My phone buzzed with a text from Walter. Got a call from the FBI. They want to interview you tomorrow morning. My office, 9 a.m. I'll be present for everything. I texted back a simple acknowledgement, dread settling in my stomach. What would they ask? How much did they know about Malcolm's investigation? About my conversations with Victoria regarding the house? Upstairs, I could hear Victoria moving around in her room. Was she packing? Planning another escape attempt? Or simply trying to process everything that had happened, as I was? I thought about checking on her, but decided against it. We both needed space, time to think. And besides, where would she go? The FBI was watching. Her accounts were likely frozen. Her husband was in jail. She had no one left but me. As darkness fell, I heated soup for dinner, calling Victoria down to join me. We ate in strained silence, the ticking of the kitchen clock unnaturally loud in the quiet house. The FBI wants to interview me tomorrow, I said finally. Victoria looked up alarmed. Why? Standard procedure, I'm sure. I lied smoothly. They're talking to everyone connected to the case. She nodded, but her eyes remained troubled. Mom, did you tell them about the gun? About what happened at the lake house? No, I said truthfully. That stays between us. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Victoria, I began carefully. How did you find me at the lake house? She blinked, surprised by the question. Uncle Raymond told me. He said Aunt Margaret mentioned you were staying there. So I had been right. I see. And the gun? Where did that come from? Victoria looked down at her soup. It's Derek's. He kept it in his nightstand. I took it when I left the house that morning. I wasn't thinking clearly. Were you really going to use it? I asked quietly. On me or yourself? She was silent for a long moment. I don't know, she finally admitted. I was so angry, so scared. I felt like my whole world was collapsing, and somehow it was all your fault. But when it came down to it, she shook her head. I couldn't do it. I could never really hurt you, Mom. I wanted to believe her. Despite everything, I desperately wanted to believe my daughter wasn't capable of that kind of violence. But the memory of the cold metal pressed against her temple, her finger on the trigger, sent a chill through me. I'm glad, I said simply. After dinner, Victoria helped me clear the dishes, a small, normal act that felt strangely significant amid the chaos of our lives. As she handed me the last plate to dry, she asked hesitantly, Can I ask you something? Of course. The lottery, was it real? Or was it? She trailed off, unable to complete the thought. It was real, I assured her. Pure luck, or fate, or whatever you want to call it. I bought 5 tickets with my last $20. One of them won. Victoria nodded slowly. Derek doesn't believe it. He thinks you've been blackmailing us, using the embezzlement as leverage. That the lottery is just a cover story. So Walter had been right. Derek was making accusations. And what do you think? I asked carefully. She met my eyes directly. I think my husband is a liar who would say anything to save himself, even if it means destroying you. The blunt assessment surprised me. Thank you for that. Don't thank me for basic decency, Mom. Not after everything. We fell silent again, the moment of connection fragile but real. Later, as we prepared for bed, Victoria paused at the door to her room. Mom, will you be okay tomorrow? With the FBI. I'll be fine, I assured her. Walter will be with me. She nodded, relief evident in her posture.
Good.
That's good. As I turned to go to my own room, Victoria called after me softly. Mom? Yes. I'm glad you won the lottery. You deserve good things. The simple statement, delivered with genuine warmth, caught me off guard. Thank you, Victoria. And Mom?
I'm sorry. For everything.
I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Then I retreated to my bedroom, emotions too tangled to sort through. In the quiet darkness, I thought about Victoria's apology. Was it genuine? Or just another manipulation, another attempt to secure my help as she faced potential criminal charges? After a lifetime of knowing my daughter, I found I could no longer trust my judgment where she was concerned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't believe a word she says. Victoria Cunningham is a liar and a thief. And she's not done hurting you yet. I stared at the message, a chill running through me.
Who would send this?
Malcolm? Someone from the Cunningham family? One of Derek's associates? A second text followed. Check her purse before your FBI meeting tomorrow. See what she's really planning. I deleted both messages, unsettled. Anonymous warnings, ominous and vague, a classic soap opera trope come to life in my own drama. Yet I couldn't shake the sense of foreboding they created. Check her purse. What was Victoria carrying that I needed to see? I told myself I wouldn't look, that I would respect her privacy, maintain the fragile trust we were rebuilding. But as the night deepened and sleep eluded me, doubt crept in like fog, filling every corner of my mind. Shortly after 2 a.m., I slipped quietly from my room and down the hall. Victoria's door was ajar, soft snoring coming from within. Her purse sat on the hallway table where she'd left it. Just a quick look, I told myself. Just to be sure. I opened the bag carefully, mindful of noise. Inside were the usual items: wallet, keys, makeup, phone. Nothing suspicious. I was about to close it when my fingers brushed against something hard tucked into an inner pocket. I withdrew the object and stared at it in the dim hallway light, blood turning to ice in my veins. A small recording device, the kind lawyers use to dictate notes. I pressed play, keeping the volume low. Victoria's voice, clear and calculating. Mom admits she hired Malcolm Reeves to dig up dirt on Derek. She implied she would use the information if I didn't sell my share of the house. Quote, things will become very unpleasant for everyone. End quote. She also admitted to having evidence of the embezzlement before it became public. The recording continued, a carefully edited collection of snippets from our conversations, arranged to make me sound like a blackmailer who had orchestrated Derek's downfall out of revenge. I switched it off, hands trembling. This was what Victoria planned to give the FBI tomorrow. Evidence that I was the villain in this story, not her or Derek. All the apologies, the tears, the vulnerability, another performance, another betrayal. I returned to my room, the recording device clutched in my hand, and sat on the edge of my bed, numb with shock. After everything, after the gun, the confessions, the seeming reconciliation, Victoria was still plotting against me. Still choosing Derek over her own mother. The pain was beyond tears, beyond rage. It was a cold, clear certainty that something fundamental had broken between us, something no amount of love or forgiveness could ever repair. I didn't sleep for what remained of the night. Instead, I sat watching the sky lighten outside my window, turning the recording device over and over in my hands, weighing options, consequences, the price of self-preservation against the cost of family loyalty. At dawn, I made my decision. I showered and dressed carefully, selecting a conservative blue suit that Edward had always said made me look both approachable and authoritative. I applied makeup with precision, arranged my hair neatly, armor for the battle ahead. Victoria was already in the kitchen when I came down making coffee. She smiled tentatively.
Morning.
I thought you might need this before your FBI meeting. She held out a mug, a peace offering, or so it would seem. I accepted it with a matching smile, searching her face for signs of duplicity. There were none. My daughter had become an excellent actress.
Thank you, I said.
That's thoughtful. Nervous about the interview? I shrugged. A little, but I have nothing to hide. Victoria nodded, dropping her gaze.
Right.
Of course. We drank our coffee in silence. I waited for her to mention the recording, to give some hint of her plans. She didn't. I should get going, I said finally. Walter wants to meet before the FBI arrives. Good luck, Victoria offered. I'm sure it will be fine. I paused at the door, looking back at my daughter, this beautiful stranger who shared my blood but apparently none of my heart. Victoria, I said quietly, is there anything you want to tell me? Anything at all? For a moment, just a moment, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Then her mask of innocence returned.
No.
Why do you ask? I smiled sadly. No reason. I'll see you later. As I drove to Walter's office, the recording device safely in my purse, I felt a strange calm descend. The choice before me was clear, if painful. I could protect Victoria again, shield her from the consequences of her actions as I had done her entire life. Or I could finally allow her to face the reckoning she had earned. Walter was waiting in his office, concern evident in his expression. Eleanor, are you all right? You look... I'm fine, I assured him. But there's something you need to hear before the FBI arrives. I placed the recording device on his desk. My daughter was planning to give this to the agents today. Listen. Walter's face darkened as Victoria's edited narrative played out. When it finished, he looked up at me, anger in his usually calm eyes. Where did you get this? Her purse. I received an anonymous tip to check it. From whom? I don't know. A text from an unknown number. Walter frowned. That's concerning in itself. Someone is watching both of you. He gestured to the device. But this is a deliberate attempt to frame you. Yes, I agreed simply. What do you want to do? I took a deep breath, the decision already made in the long, sleepless hours of a night. I want to tell the truth, Walter. All of it. The dinner. The lottery. Malcolm's investigation. Victoria's appearance at the lake house with a gun. This recording. Everything. Walter studied me. You understand what that means for Victoria?
Ido.
She could face additional charges. Witness tampering. Obstruction of justice. I know, and your relationship with her is already beyond repair. I interrupted gently. She made her choice, Walter. Now I'm making mine. He nodded slowly. Very well. When the agents arrive, we'll present this evidence. But Eleanor, are you absolutely certain? This is your daughter. I thought of Victoria's smirk as she'd humiliated me at dinner, of her gun pointed at my chest, of her voice on the recording coolly constructing a narrative that could have sent me to prison. Yes, I said firmly. I'm certain. The intercom buzzed. Walter's assistant announced the arrival of Agents Hunter and Diaz. I squared my shoulders, ready to face what came next. The truth would hurt me, Victoria, what remained of our family. But the lies had already done far worse. Send them in, Walter instructed. As the door opened and the agents entered, I felt a strange sense of liberation. Whatever happened now, I would no longer be anyone's victim. Not my daughter's, not Derek's, not even my own past's. I was Eleanor Blackwood. Widow, mother, lottery winner, survivor. And I was finally truly free. The recording device sat on Walter's desk between us, a small black box containing the final betrayal, the last secret, the ultimate truth. Mrs. Blackwood, Agent Hunter began. Thank you for coming in today. We have some questions about your relationship with your daughter and son-in-law and about certain financial transactions that have come to our attention. I met his gaze steadily. I have something you need to hear first. I reached for the device, my fingers hovering above it for one final, hesitant moment. In that pause, I saw Victoria's face, not as she was now, but as she had been at 5, at 10, at 16. My child. My heart. Then I saw her with the gun, heard her voice on the recording, felt again the sting of her public humiliation. My finger pressed play. Victoria's voice filled Walter's office, the carefully edited recording painting me as a manipulative blackmailer who had orchestrated Derek's downfall out of pure vengeance. As the final snippet played, my daughter's masterful impersonation of a victim, I watched the FBI agent's expressions shift from professional neutrality to focused interest. "And where did you get this recording, Mrs. Blackwood?" Agent Hunter asked when it finished. "From my daughter's purse this morning," I replied, after receiving an anonymous text warning me to check it. I handed over my phone, showing them the mysterious messages. Agent Diaz took photos of the screen while Hunter made notes. "You searched your daughter's belongings based on an anonymous tip?" Hunter's tone carried a hint of judgment. "Given recent events, I felt it was prudent," I said. "My daughter held me at gunpoint 3 days ago, Agent Hunter. My trust has certain limitations." That got their attention. Both agents straightened, exchanging glances. "A gunpoint confrontation wasn't mentioned in any reports we've seen," Diaz said carefully. "Because I didn't report it," I explained. Victoria was distraught. The gun was her husband's. She threatened both me and herself before eventually calming down. Walter cleared his throat. "My client is sharing this information voluntarily, agents. She wants to be completely transparent about the situation." "I appreciate that," Hunter said. "But I have to ask, why didn't you report such a serious incident immediately?" I met his gaze steadily. "Because despite everything, she's my daughter. I wanted to give her a chance to do the right thing." "And now?" Diaz asked. I gestured to the recording device. Now I realized that was a mistake. For the next 2 hours, I told them everything. The family dinner where Victoria had humiliated me, the lottery win I'd kept secret, hiring Malcolm to investigate Derek, Victoria's appearance at the lake house with a gun, our apparent reconciliation, and now this final betrayal. I left nothing out, answering their increasingly detailed questions with complete honesty. "So to be clear," Hunter summarized, "you had knowledge of the embezzlement scheme before it became public, but you did not send the evidence to Howard Cunningham or the authorities."
Correct.
I was still deciding what to do with the information when it all exploded in the news. "And you have no idea who might have sent that evidence to Mr. Cunningham?" "I have suspicions," I admitted. Malcolm Reeves had access to all the information. He might have acted on his own initiative. "Based on what?" I sighed. "Based on things I said while angry. I may have implied I wanted to see Victoria and Derek face consequences for how they treated me. Malcolm might have interpreted that as authorization to act." The agents exchanged another meaningful look. "We'll need to speak with Mr. Reeves," Diaz said. "Of course," Walter agreed. "But I want to emphasize that my client never explicitly instructed anyone to expose the embezzlement scheme. Any action Mr. Reeves took was on his own initiative." Hunter made a non-committal noise, then turned back to me. "Mrs. Blackwood, what do you think your daughter planned to do with this recording?" "Use it to shift blame," I said simply. "Make me the villain of the story. Suggest I blackmailed or extorted them using the embezzlement information, and that the lottery win was just a cover story for money I'd somehow extracted from them." "And did you? Blackmail them, I mean?" I met his gaze directly.
No.
"I used my knowledge of their financial situation to pressure Victoria into selling her share of the house. Yes. I implied I knew things that could cause problems for them. But I never threatened to expose the embezzlement in exchange for money or any other benefit." "A fine distinction," Diaz noted. "But an important one legally," Walter interjected. "My client's actions, while perhaps not entirely above reproach emotionally, do not constitute blackmail or extortion under the law." Hunter nodded slowly. "Mrs. Blackwood, We'll need to take this recording as evidence. We'll also need formal statements about the gun incident and your interactions with Malcolm Reeves. Whatever you need, I agreed. And be aware, Diaz added, that this significantly changes the nature of our investigation regarding your daughter. A pang shot through my heart despite everything. I understand. As the agents prepared to leave, Hunter paused. One more thing, Mrs. Blackwood. Do you have any idea who might have sent those anonymous texts? Anyone with a vested interest in exposing your daughter's plans? I shook my head. No one comes to mind. No one at all, he pressed. Not Malcolm Reeves? Not someone from the Cunningham family? Not your sister or brother-in-law? The mention of Raymond made me pause. My brother-in-law told Victoria where to find me at the lake house. He's always been overly interested in Victoria and Derek's affairs. But I can't imagine why he would warn me about the recording. People's motivations can be complex, Hunter observed. We'll look into it. After they left with the recording device and copies of the text messages, Walter closed the door and turned to me, concern etched in his features. Eleanor, are you all right? I stared out the window, watching the agents walk to their car. I just betrayed my only child, Walter. All right isn't exactly the word I'd use. You didn't betray her, he corrected gently. You told the truth. There's a difference. Is there? From where Victoria stands, I just destroyed whatever chance she had of minimizing the damage. Victoria made her choices. Walter reminded me. The gun. The recording. Those were her decisions, not yours. I nodded, though the guilt still gnawed at me. What happens now? The FBI will investigate further. They'll interview Malcolm, possibly your sister and brother-in-law. They'll certainly question Victoria about the recording and the gun incident. Will she be arrested? Walter sighed. It's likely yes. Threatening you with a firearm, attempting to manipulate evidence, these are serious offenses, Eleanor. I closed my eyes briefly, the full weight of what I'd done, what we'd both done, settling over me. I need to get home before they find her. Is that wise, given what she planned to do to you? Probably not, I admitted. But I need to see her face when she realizes what I've done. I need her to hear it from me, not from strangers with badges and handcuffs. Walter studied me, then nodded. I understand. But Eleanor, be careful. This isn't over yet. Those words followed me home, echoing ominously as I pulled into my driveway. Victoria's car was still there, which meant she hadn't run.
Yet.
The house was quiet when I entered. No sign of my daughter downstairs. Victoria? I called, climbing the stairs to her bedroom. The door stood open, the room empty. Her suitcase was on the bed, half-packed, clothes strewn around it. But no Victoria. A faint noise from down the hall drew my attention. From Edward's study, a room Victoria rarely entered. I approached cautiously, pushing the door open to find my daughter sitting at Edward's desk, a glass of his favorite bourbon in her hand, staring at a framed family photo from years ago. You're back early, she said without looking up. How did it go with the FBI? Something in her tone, a brittle casualness that didn't quite mask the tension beneath, told me she already knew. I think you know exactly how it went, I replied, stepping into the room. Victoria took a sip of bourbon, still not meeting my eyes. They called. Said they're sending agents to pick me up. Something about new evidence. The recording, I confirmed. I found it in your purse last night. Now she looked up, her expression unreadable. Of course you did. Let me guess, anonymous tip? Yes, actually. She laughed humorlessly. How convenient. Victoria. Save it. She cut me off. You made your choice. Just like I made mine. You were going to frame me, I said quietly. Send me to prison to save yourself. I was going to survive, she corrected. That's what you taught me, isn't it? By example, if not by word. Survive at all costs. The accusation stung precisely because it contained a kernel of truth. Hadn't I done exactly that, survived at all costs? The lottery. The house. Malcolm's investigation. Each step a move in a complex game of survival. Not at the cost of family, I said finally. Victoria's laugh was bitter, cutting. Family? You've been using that word a lot lately, Mom. But what does it actually mean to you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a convenient shield when you want protection and a weapon when you want attack. That's not fair. Fair. She slammed the glass down, bourbon sloshing over the sides. Was it fair when you used your lottery winnings to force me out of my home? Was it fair when you hired a private investigator to dig through my husband's business? Was it fair when you exposed everything to the FBI this morning? Was it fair when you held a gun to my head? I countered. Or when you created that recording to frame me? We're long past fair, Victoria. She stared at me, then suddenly deflated, the fight draining out of her. It doesn't matter anymore. None of it does. Something in her tone alarmed me. What do you mean? The agents said they'll be here within the hour. To arrest me. She picked up the bourbon again, draining it. For threatening you with a gun. For witness tampering. Maybe even as an accessory to Derek's embezzlement. They weren't specific about the charges. Victoria. I won't survive prison, Mom. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. I'm not built for it. Neither is Derek, though he doesn't know it yet. You don't know what you're built for until you're tested, I said quietly. She smiled faintly. Dad used to say that. Because it's true. Victoria stood up, moving to the window that overlooked the backyard. Edward's prize roses, the old oak tree with the rope swing he'd hung when Victoria was 7. I keep thinking about that dinner, she said. When I called you a burden. I tensed, the memory still raw. What about it? I didn't mean it. Not really. She turned to face me. I was stressed about money Derek claimed we had, but somehow never materialized. I was angry that you kept refusing our suggestions about downsizing, moving to assisted living. I lashed out. With surgical precision, I noted. In front of the entire family. She winced. I know. It was cruel. Unforgivable. And yet here we are, discussing forgiveness. Victoria studied me. Is that what we're doing? I moved further into the room, standing across the desk from her. I don't know what we're doing anymore, Victoria. Every time I think I understand what's happening between us, the ground shifts again. That makes 2 of us. She picked up the family photo she'd been looking at when I entered. Victoria at 10, sitting between Edward and me on a beach blanket, all of us smiling broadly. We were happy then, weren't we? It wasn't just an illusion. We were happy, I confirmed, throat tightening at the memory. Your father and I, at least. Were you? She nodded slowly. I think so. Before I learned to want more than what we had. Before I started measuring my worth by what I owned rather than who I was. When did that happen? College, maybe. When I met people with family names, family money, family power. Or maybe later, when I met Derek and saw how his family operated. Everything for show, everything for status. And you wanted that? I wanted to belong in that world. She set the photo down carefully. Ironic, isn't it? I destroyed my place in the real world chasing an illusion. The sound of car doors slamming outside interrupted us. Victoria tensed, glancing toward the window. They're here, she whispered. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime incongruous with the gravity of the moment. Victoria looked at me, a sudden desperation in her eyes. Mom, I'll go with you, I said quickly. I'll speak to them. Explain that the gun situation wasn't as serious as I made it sound. That you were upset, not thinking clearly. Hope flickered across her face. You do that? After everything? You're still my daughter. The words came automatically, a truth so fundamental it transcended all the pain between us. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. I moved to answer it, Victoria following several paces behind. On the porch stood Agents Hunter and Diaz, along with a uniformed police officer. Mrs. Blackwood, Hunter greeted me. Is your daughter home? She's here, I confirmed, stepping aside to reveal Victoria in the hallway behind me. But before you do anything, I need to clarify some things about my earlier statement. Hunter's expression remained impassive. We're not here to arrest Victoria Cunningham, Mrs. Blackwood. I blinked in confusion. You're not?
No.
His gaze shifted to Victoria. We're here to inform her that her husband, Derek Cunningham, attempted suicide in custody an hour ago. The blood drained from Victoria's face.
What?
Is he? He's alive, Diaz interjected quickly, but in critical condition. He's being treated at Memorial Hospital. Victoria swayed on her feet. I instinctively moved to her side, supporting her as her knees threatened to buckle. How? She whispered. He used his bedsheet, Hunter said, his voice softening slightly. A guard found him during routine checks. They were able to revive him. Victoria turned to me, shock and terror written across her features. I need to go to him. Mom, please. Of course, I said immediately. I'll drive you. Hunter held up a hand. Mrs. Cunningham, we still have questions about the recording device and the incident at the lake house. But under the circumstances, they can wait until tomorrow. You should know, however, that we've frozen your remaining accounts and you are not to leave town. Victoria nodded numbly, barely seeming to register his words. I understand. We'll escort you to the hospital, Diaz added. Given the high-profile nature of the case and the unusual circumstances. I understood the unspoken message. They weren't just escorting Victoria out of courtesy. They were ensuring she didn't flee or attempt anything desperate herself. I'm coming too, I said firmly. Hunter hesitated, then nodded. Follow our vehicle. The drive to Memorial Hospital passed in tense silence. Victoria stared out the passenger window, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. I wanted to comfort her, but had no idea what to say. Derek had tried to take his own life. Whatever I thought of him, whatever he had done, this was a human tragedy that would scar Victoria forever. At the hospital, we were led to a secured wing where Derek was being treated. 2 uniformed officers stood outside his room. Through the window, I could see Derek lying unconscious, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. His neck bore angry red marks from the makeshift noose. Oh God, Victoria breathed, pressing a hand to the glass. Derek. A doctor emerged from the room, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Cunningham?
I'm Dr. Patel.
Your husband is stable but critical. The oxygen deprivation caused some brain swelling. We've placed him in a medically induced coma to give his brain time to heal. Will he recover? Victoria asked, voice trembling. Dr. Patel's expression was carefully neutral. It's too soon to tell the extent of the damage. The next 48 hours will be critical. Victoria's composure finally broke. She collapsed against the wall, silent sobs racking her body. I moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Can she see him? I asked the doctor. Briefly, Dr. Patel conceded. But only for a few minutes. He needs complete rest. Agent Hunter nodded his permission, and Victoria was allowed into Derek's room. She approached the bed cautiously, as if afraid he might shatter at her touch. I watched through the window as she took his limp hand, bending to whisper something in his ear. Did Derek leave a note? I asked Hunter quietly. Yes, he confirmed, but I'm not at liberty to discuss its contents. Was my daughter mentioned in it? Hunter hesitated, then gave a slight nod. Among others. A chill ran through me. Others? Who? Mrs. Blackwood, I really can't. Agent Hunter, I interrupted, my family is in pieces. My son-in-law is fighting for his life. My daughter may be facing criminal charges.
Please.
I need to understand what's happening. He studied me for a long moment, then sighed. The note mentioned your daughter, you, Howard Cunningham, and a man named Jason Keller. The last name meant nothing to me. Jason Keller? Who is that? We're looking into it. He appears to be a former employee of Cunningham Investment Group who left under unclear circumstances 2 years ago. I filed the name away, another piece in the increasingly complex puzzle of Derek's crimes. Thank you for telling me. Hunter nodded, then glanced at his watch. Dr. Patel said a few minutes. It's been 15. I looked back through the window. Victoria was still at Derek's bedside, her head now resting on his chest, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The sight stirred conflicting emotions within me, sympathy for her pain, anger at Derek for putting her through this, and a nagging suspicion that there was more to this suicide attempt than simple despair. A nurse entered the room, gently indicating that Victoria needed to leave. She pressed a final kiss to Derek's forehead, then allowed herself to be led out, her face tear-streaked and hollow. "They're transferring him to the prison hospital ward once he's stable enough to move," Diaz informed her. "You'll be able to visit him there with authorization." Victoria nodded mechanically. "Can I stay?" "Just until they move him." Hunter and Diaz exchanged glances. "We'll have an officer remain with you," Hunter decided. "But yes, you can stay until the transfer." "Thank you," she whispered. I touched her arm gently. "Do you want me to stay too?" She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since we'd arrived. "No," she said quietly. "I think it's better if you go." The rejection stung, but I understood. Too much had happened between us. Too many betrayals on both sides. "I'll be at home if you need me," I said. She nodded, then turned back toward Derek's room, already dismissing my presence. As I prepared to leave, Hunter followed me a few steps down the corridor. "Mrs. Blackwood, despite these circumstances, we still need to continue our investigation. We'll be interviewing Malcolm Reeves tomorrow morning." "I understand. And we'll need to speak with your daughter about the recording and the gun incident as soon as possible." "She's in no state for questioning right now," I pointed out. "Obviously," he agreed. "But delay only complicates matters. Tomorrow afternoon, perhaps, depending on her husband's condition." I nodded, too emotionally drained to argue. "Is there anything else?" Hunter hesitated. "Just be careful, Mrs. Blackwood. Family situations like this can become volatile very quickly." "You think Victoria might be dangerous?" I asked, alarmed. "I think everyone in this case has shown themselves capable of unexpected actions," he replied diplomatically. "Including your daughter, her husband, and potentially others we haven't identified yet." The warning followed me home, joining Walter's earlier caution. This isn't over yet. But what more could possibly happen? Derek was in a coma. Victoria was under surveillance at the hospital. The embezzlement scheme was exposed. My lottery winnings were secure. What else was left to unravel? The answer came sooner than I expected. As I pulled into my driveway, my headlights illuminated a figure sitting on my porch steps, a man middle-aged, in a rumpled suit, smoking a cigarette. I remained in the car, doors locked, and called Walter. "There's someone at my house," I said when he answered. "A stranger." "Stay in your car," Walter instructed immediately. "I'm calling the police." "Wait," I said, squinting through the windshield. "He looks familiar somehow." The man had noticed my arrival. He stood, dropping his cigarette and grinding it under his heel. Then he walked calmly to the edge of the porch and raised both hands, palms forward, in a gesture that clearly meant, "I'm not a threat." "Eleanor." Walter's voice came through the phone. "Are you still there?" "Yes," I replied, still watching the stranger. I think I know him. Let me call you back." "Eleanor, don't." I ended the call and, against all better judgment, stepped out of the car. The porch light illuminated the man's features more clearly, a face I hadn't seen in nearly 2 decades, older now, weathered, but unmistakable. "Hello, Eleanor," he called softly. "It's been a long time." "Jason," I breathed, memories flooding back. "Jason Keller." He smiled faintly. "You remember. I wasn't sure you would." "What are you doing here?" I asked, remaining by my car, maintaining safe distance. "I heard about Derek. About the embezzlement investigation." He gestured toward the house. "Could we talk inside? What I have to tell you shouldn't be discussed on a front porch." Every instinct warned against inviting this ghost from the past into my home. Yet curiosity, and the FBI's mention of his name in Derek's suicide note, overrode caution. "All right," I agreed. "But I warn you, I've had enough surprises for one lifetime." Jason laughed humorlessly. "Oh, Eleanor, you haven't even scratched the surface." In the living room, I offered Jason a drink, which he declined. He sat on the edge of the sofa, looking around at the familiar surroundings. "The place hasn't changed much," he observed. "Same furniture. Same photos. even the same pink color. Why are you here, Jason? I asked directly. After 18 years of silence, why now? He met my gaze steadily. Because Derek Cunningham tried to kill himself today. Because your daughter is in trouble. And because you deserve to know the truth about both of them. What truth? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. What could you possibly know about my family? More than you might think, he replied. Tell me, Eleanor, did you ever wonder why I left so suddenly all those years ago? Why Edward and I ended our partnership without explanation? The question transported me back nearly 2 decades to a time when Edward and Jason had run a successful small investment firm together. Their abrupt split had come as a shock to everyone, including me. Edward had never fully explained it, saying only that they had irreconcilable differences about the company's direction. Edward didn't like to discuss it, I said carefully. Jason nodded, unsurprised. No, he wouldn't have. It would have meant admitting that his precious daughter was sleeping with his business partner. The words hit me like a physical blow.
What?
Victoria was barely 17. 18, Jason corrected. Just turned. A freshman in college. Home for spring break. I stared at him, horrified. You and Victoria? But you were? 36, he supplied.
Yes.
Inappropriate in every way. I'm not proud of it, Eleanor. But that's not why I'm here. Then why? I demanded, anger rising. To confess ancient sins? To disturb what little peace I have left. I'm here because history is repeating itself, Jason said quietly. And because I owe it to Edward to stop at this time. What are you talking about? Jason leaned forward. The embezzlement scheme at Cunningham Investment Group didn't start with Derek. It started with Howard Cunningham, at least 15 years ago. And Edward knew about it. I shook my head in disbelief. That's impossible. Edward would never have been involved in anything illegal. Not involved, Jason clarified. But aware. Howard approached our firm about a partnership around the time Victoria started dating Derek. Edward did his due diligence, discovered irregularities in Howard's accounts, and declined the partnership. But he didn't report what he'd found. Why not? Because of Victoria. Because she was in love with Derek, and Edward didn't want to destroy her relationship by sending her boyfriend's father to prison. Jason's expression darkened. A decision he came to regret deeply. My mind raced, trying to reconcile this new information with the husband I had known and loved. Even if that's true, what does it have to do with you and Victoria? Jason sighed heavily. After Edward discovered what I'd done with Victoria, he forced me out of the firm, bought my shares for pennies on the dollar, made me sign a non-disclosure agreement. I was forbidden from contacting any of you, especially Victoria. As it should have been, I said coldly. You took advantage of a teenager. I'm not denying that, Jason acknowledged. But there's more to the story. When Edward cut me loose, I needed work. Howard Cunningham offered me a position at his firm, knowing I had nowhere else to go. And you took it? After what Edward had discovered about him. I was desperate and naive. I thought I could keep my head down, do honest work within a dishonest system. He laughed bitterly. That fantasy lasted about 6 months. Then Howard asked me to help him restructure some client accounts. You helped him embezzle. I translated. For a time, Jason admitted. Until I realized the full scope of what was happening. Then I gathered evidence, intending to go to the authorities. But you didn't, I guessed.
No.
Because Howard found out. And he made it very clear what would happen if I talked. To me, to my reputation, and to Victoria.
Victoria?
Why would she be affected? Jason's expression was pitying. Because by then, she was engaged to Derek. And Derek was already involved in his father's schemes. The implications struck me with sickening clarity. You're saying Victoria knew? Even back then? I don't know for certain, Jason said carefully. But Howard implied she did. That she was part of the family business now. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, to process this bombshell. This is insane. You're telling me my husband knew about Howard's crimes 15 years ago? That Victoria might have been involved even before she married Derek? That you helped them embezzle? Why should I believe any of this? Because I'm the one who sent Howard the evidence of Derek's embezzlement, Jason said quietly. And I'm the one who sent you those anonymous texts about Victoria's recording. I stared at him, speechless. I've been watching from a distance for years, he continued. Working at a small firm in the next state, keeping tabs on the Cunninghams through industry connections. When I heard about Derek's more recent schemes, stealing from his own family's firm, I knew it was time to act. Why? I demanded. After all these years, why suddenly develop a conscience? Jason stood up, moving to the mantel where a photo of Edward sat. Because Edward was a good man who made one terrible mistake, protecting his daughter at the expense of justice. It destroyed him inside, Eleanor. You must have seen it. The way he withdrew in his last years. The depression that the doctors couldn't explain. I had seen it. Edward's gradual retreat into himself, his mysterious melancholy that no treatment seemed to touch. I'd attributed it to age, to disillusionment with retirement, perhaps even to early signs of the cancer that would eventually take him. But this explanation, could it possibly be true? I have proof, Jason said, as if reading my thoughts. He reached into his jacket, withdrawing a thumb drive. Emails between Edward and Howard from 15 years ago. Financial records showing the original embezzlement. Documentation of my own involvement, for which I'm fully prepared to face consequences. He placed the drive on the coffee table between us. And something else. Something Edward left with me for safekeeping, in case the truth ever needed to come out. From an inner pocket, he produced a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. My name was written on it in Edward's distinctive handwriting. He gave me this the day he forced me out, Jason explained. Said if anything ever happened to Victoria because of the Cunninghams, I should make sure you got it. My hand trembled as I took the envelope. Why would he give it to you of all people? Because I was the only one who knew everything, Jason said simply. And because, despite what I'd done with Victoria, he knew I cared about what happened to your family. I turned the envelope over in my hands, heart pounding. My husband's final message, hidden away for nearly 2 decades, delivered by the last person I would have expected. I should go, Jason said, standing. You have a lot to process. And I imagine the FBI will want to speak with me once you share that drive with them. You're just leaving? I asked, bewildered by the sudden exit.
For now.
I'm staying at the Ridgemont Hotel under my own name. I'm not running anymore, Eleanor. He moved toward the door, then paused. I am truly sorry. For everything. The affair with Victoria. The silence all these years. Not coming forward sooner about the Cunninghams. Why did you? I asked suddenly. Come forward now, I mean. What changed? Jason's expression softened. I read about your lottery win. About Victoria calling you a burden at that dinner. It reminded me too much of how the Cunninghams operate, using people, discarding them when they're no longer useful. I couldn't let them do to you what they did to Edward. With that, he was gone, leaving me alone with a thumb drive full of secrets and a letter from my dead husband. For a long time, I sat motionless on the sofa, staring at the envelope in my hands. Part of me wanted to rip it open immediately. Another part wanted to burn it unread. Whatever Edward had felt the need to conceal from me in life, did I really want to discover it now, when our marriage existed only in memory? Finally, with hands that wouldn't quite steady, I carefully tore open the seal and withdrew a single sheet of paper. Edward's familiar handwriting filled the page. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means the past I tried so desperately to bury has resurfaced. For that, I am deeply sorry. You deserved better than secrets between us. What Jason has told you is true. I discovered Howard Cunningham's financial crimes years ago, when Victoria first brought Derek home. I faced an impossible choice: expose Howard and destroy Victoria's happiness, or remain silent and preserve her future at the cost of my integrity.
He chose Victoria.
I chose family. And that choice has haunted me every day since. Howard Cunningham is a dangerous man, not physically violent, but utterly without moral compass. When Victoria and Derek became engaged, I tried to warn her discreetly about the family she was joining. She dismissed my concerns, accusing me of snobbery, of not wanting her to marry into new money. Perhaps I should have been more direct, but I feared pushing her further into their orbit. The truth I've never shared, even with you, is that Howard threatened us. Not explicitly, but with the practiced subtlety of a man accustomed to getting his way. He made it clear that if I exposed him, he would destroy not just me, but you and Victoria as well. I believed him. So I made a devil's bargain. I stayed silent about his crimes. In exchange, he promised Victoria would be protected from their darker business practices. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But over the years, I've seen our daughter change. Become harder, more materialistic, more Cunningham than Blackwood. I fear my silence didn't protect her. It merely delayed her corruption. If you're reading this, it means my fears were justified. It means Victoria is in danger, either from the Cunninghams or from what she's become through their influence. The thumb drive Jason has given you contains everything I knew about Howard's schemes. Use it as you see fit. But be careful, my love. The Cunninghams have powerful friends and few scruples. I'm sorry for the burden of truth I've placed on you. I'm sorry for the years of silence. Most of all, I'm sorry I won't be there to face this alongside you. All my love, always. Edward. P.S. Whatever Jason has done, whatever mistakes he's made, he is not the villain of this story. Remember that when passing judgment, tears blurred my vision as I finished reading. Edward's voice seemed to fill the room, as clear and present as if he were sitting beside me. The weight of his confession, the impossible choice he'd faced, the burden he'd carried alone, broke my heart anew. And Victoria. My God, Victoria. How deep did her involvement go? Had she been corrupted from the very beginning of her relationship with Derek? Or had she been a victim of the Cunninghams' influence, slowly molded into someone her father no longer recognized? I reached for my phone, intending to call Walter, to share this bombshell development. But before I could dial, a text message appeared on the screen from an unknown number, the same one that had warned me about Victoria's recording. Check the news.
Now.
Heart pounding, I turned on the television, switching to the local news channel. A breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Howard Cunningham found dead in home. Apparent suicide. The reporter's voice cut through my shock. Police were called to the Cunningham estate shortly after 9 p.m. this evening, where they discovered the body of Howard Cunningham, founder of Cunningham Investment Group. Sources close to the investigation report that Mr. Cunningham appears to have taken his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This comes just hours after his son, Derek Cunningham, attempted suicide while in custody on embezzlement charges. The Cunningham family has asked for privacy during this difficult time. I sank back onto the sofa, mind reeling. 2 suicide attempts in the same family on the same day, one successful, one not. It strained credulity. My phone rang. Walter. Are you watching the news? He asked without preamble. Yes, I managed. Howard Cunningham. This isn't a coincidence, Eleanor. 2 suicides in one day, both key figures in the embezzlement case? Someone is cleaning house. A chill ran through me.
Victoria.
She's at the hospital with Derek. I've already called Agent Hunter, Walter assured me. They're increasing security around Derek's room and keeping a closer eye on Victoria. Walter, there's more, I said urgently. Jason Keller came to see me tonight. Who? A former business partner of Edward's. He brought evidence about Howard Cunningham's crimes going back 15 years. And a letter from Edward, explaining why he never reported them. Walter was silent for a moment, processing this. Where is this Jason Keller now? He said he's staying at the Ridgemont Hotel. Walter, he claims he's the one who sent the evidence to Howard and the anonymous text to me. This is a significant development, Walter said carefully. Don't do anything with that evidence yet. Don't contact Victoria. I'm coming over. I need to warn her, I insisted. If someone is cleaning house, as you put it, she could be in danger. The FBI is already at the hospital, Walter reminded me. She's safer there than anywhere else right now. Just sit tight. I'll be there in 20 minutes. After hanging up, I stared at Edward's letter, rereading his warnings about Howard Cunningham. Howard Cunningham is a dangerous man, not physically violent, but utterly without moral compass. And yet now Howard was dead by violence, his own apparently. It made no sense. Unless a terrible suspicion began to form in my mind. What if Howard hadn't killed himself? What if Derek hadn't tried to kill himself either? What if someone was systematically eliminating everyone involved in the embezzlement scheme? But who? And why now? My phone rang again, the hospital's number. I answered quickly. Mrs. Blackwood? A nurse's voice came through. Your daughter asked me to call you. She'd like you to come to the hospital right away. Is everything all right? I asked, alarmed. Mr. Cunningham's condition has deteriorated, the nurse said carefully. Your daughter is quite distressed. She's asking for you specifically. Despite Walter's warnings, I couldn't ignore Victoria's call for help. Tell her I'm on my way. I texted Walter to let him know where I was going, grabbed my purse and Edward's letter, and headed for the door. As I stepped onto the porch, movement in the shadows near the garden caught my eye. I froze, peering into the darkness. Hello? I called cautiously. Is someone there? Silence answered me. Just nerves, I told myself, unlocking my car with trembling fingers. Just the wind in the bushes and an overactive imagination fueled by too many shocking revelations. I was halfway to the hospital when my phone rang again. Walter. Eleanor, where are you? He demanded. On my way to the hospital, I replied. Victoria needs me. Turn around, Walter said urgently.
Now.
The hospital didn't call you. I just checked with Agent Hunter. Victoria hasn't asked for you. Ice flooded my veins. But the nurse. It wasn't the hospital, Eleanor. Someone lured you out of your house. The police are on their way there now. Pull over and wait for them to escort you back. But Victoria is fine, Walter assured me. Under FBI protection. Pull over, Eleanor.
Now.
I obeyed, guiding my car to the shoulder of the road, heart pounding in my chest. Walter, what's happening? I don't know yet, he admitted. But Jason Keller isn't at the Ridgemont Hotel. There's no record of him checking in. Then where? Mrs. Blackwood? A new voice spoke behind me. I screamed, dropping the phone as I whirled to see a figure rising from the back seat, a man in a dark suit, face shadowed. Please don't be alarmed, he said calmly. I'm here to protect you. Who are you? I demanded, fumbling for the door handle. He leaned forward into the glow from the dashboard lights, revealing a familiar face. Not Jason Keller, as I had feared, but Agent Diaz. FBI, he reminded me, showing his badge. We've been following you since you left your house. Your lawyer called us, concerned for your safety. Relief washed through me, followed by confusion. But the call from the hospital wasn't from the hospital, Diaz confirmed. We're tracing it now. I retrieved my phone from the floor. Walter was still on the line, his voice frantic. Eleanor? Eleanor, I'm here, I assured him. Agent Diaz is with me. Thank God, Walter breathed. Stay with him. Don't go anywhere alone. I'll meet you at the FBI field office. Agent Diaz took the phone. Mr. Green? Yes, she's safe. We'll bring her in now. No, we haven't located Keller yet. Yes, we're aware of the Howard Cunningham situation. I understand. We'll see you soon. He handed the phone back to me. Mrs. Blackwood, I need you to drive to our field office. I'll direct you. Other agents are already with your daughter at the hospital. What's happening? Asked as I pulled back onto the road. Why would someone lure me out of my house? We're still piecing that together, Diaz said. But it appears Howard Cunningham's death may not have been suicide after all. Murder? I whispered. The evidence is preliminary, but yes, that's our working theory. And if we're right, Derek's suicide attempt may have been something else entirely. An attempted murder made to look like suicide, I concluded, the pieces falling into place. But who would? That's what we need to figure out, Diaz interrupted. And quickly. Because whoever it is, they seem to be working through a list. Howard Cunningham. Derek Cunningham. And now, potentially, you. Me? But I'm not involved in the embezzlement. No, but you're involved in exposing it. And you've just come into a substantial amount of money that might make certain parties nervous. I thought of Jason Keller's revelations, of Edward's letter, of 15 years of financial crimes that had somehow remained hidden until now. Agent Diaz, I said carefully, there's something you should know about Howard Cunningham's crimes, about how long they've been going on. As I drove through the night toward the FBI office, I told him everything: Jason's visit, Edward's letter, the thumb drive of evidence. Diaz listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. This could explain a lot, he said when I finished. If Howard's schemes go back that far, there could be multiple parties with motives to silence him. Former clients, business partners, even people within his own company who might be implicated if he talked. But why now? I asked. Why after all these years? Because your lottery win and the public confrontation with your daughter brought attention to the family. Because Malcolm Reeves's investigation uncovered current embezzlement that might have led back to the historical crimes. Because someone got nervous. It made a terrible kind of sense. And Jason Keller? Do you think he's involved in the murders? His sudden reappearance is certainly suspicious, Diaz acknowledged. But if he wanted you dead, he had the opportunity at your house. Why leave, then lure you out? Unless that was just the first attempt, I suggested. Maybe he planned to intercept me on the road, away from witnesses. Possible, Diaz agreed. But there's another possibility we're considering. What's that? He hesitated before answering. That someone inside the investigation is involved. Someone with access to details about Derek's arrest, Howard's death, and your movements. The implication was clear: an FBI agent. Or a police officer. Someone in an official capacity who could monitor the case from the inside. Is that why you were hiding in my back seat? I asked. Rather than approaching openly? Diaz nodded. Operational security. Only Agent Hunter and I know about this surveillance assignment. We drove the rest of the way in tense silence, my mind racing with possibilities. Who could be behind these deaths? Who had access, motive, opportunity? The list of potential suspects seemed to grow with each new revelation. At the FBI field office, Walter was waiting along with Agent Hunter and, to my surprise, Victoria. She looked pale and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Mom," she said when she saw me, relief evident in her voice. "Thank God you're okay." Despite everything, the recording, the gun, the multiple betrayals, I found myself moving toward her, embracing her trembling form. "I'm fine," I assured her. "What about you?" They said Derek. "His condition is the same," she interrupted. "The agents brought me here for protection after they heard about Howard." I looked to Hunter for confirmation. He nodded grimly. "We're keeping the surviving members of both families under protection until we understand what we're dealing with." "And what are you dealing with?" Walter asked. Hunter exchanged glances with Diaz. "A complex financial crimes case that has now evolved to include 2 suspicious deaths. Mrs. Blackwood has provided new information suggesting the embezzlement schemes may go back much further than we initially thought." The thumb drive. I remembered suddenly. It's still in my house, in my living room. "We've sent agents to secure your home and retrieve it," Hunter assured me. "In the meantime, we need to go over everything again. Every interaction with Jason Keller. Every detail you can remember about your husband's knowledge of Howard Cunningham's activities." For the next several hours, I answered questions, Victoria at my side. I shared Edward's letter, watching her face as she read her father's words, his fear for her, his regret at his own silence, his warning about the family she had married into. She wept silently, clutching the paper as if it were a lifeline to the father she had lost. "Did you know?" I asked her quietly while the agents stepped away to confer. "About Howard's crimes. About Derek's." Victoria looked up, her eyes haunted. "Not at first. Not until after we were married. Derek told me it was just creative accounting, moving money around to benefit the firm's most valued clients. But over time, I began to understand what was really happening. And you said nothing. What could I say? By then, I was complicit. I had signed documents. I had spent the money. She shook her head in despair. I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone, that the clients would never miss what they didn't know they had. And now Howard is dead. Derek might never wake up, and someone may be trying to kill us both. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. This is all my fault. If I had never gotten involved with Derek. We can't change the past, I interrupted gently. Only how we respond to it now. She nodded, wiping away tears. I'll tell them everything I know. About all of it. The embezzlement. The recording. Everything. Even if it means prison? Even then. She met my gaze steadily. Dad would have wanted me to do the right thing. Finally, Agent Hunter returned, accompanied by a technician carrying a laptop. Mrs. Blackwood, my team has recovered the thumb drive from your home and reviewed its contents. The evidence appears to substantiate everything you've told us about Howard Cunningham's long-term embezzlement activities. Relief washed through me. So you believe me? About all of it? We do, Hunter confirmed, which makes Jason Keller's disappearance all the more concerning. We've put out an APB for him, but so far no leads. What about the fake call from the hospital? I asked. Have you traced it? Hunter's expression tightened. That's complicated. The call appears to have been routed through multiple proxies, but preliminary analysis suggests it originated from within our own systems. Walter leaned forward, alarmed. You're saying someone in the FBI made that call? Or someone with access to our communications? Hunter clarified. We're investigating internally, but for now, we're operating with maximum security protocols. No one outside this room knows your location. A knock at the door interrupted us. Agent Diaz answered it, speaking briefly with someone in the hallway before turning back to us, his expression grave. Sir, there's been a development at the hospital. Derek Cunningham has been moved to intensive care. His condition is deteriorating rapidly. Victoria stood up, panic in her eyes. What happened? He was stable when I left. The doctors aren't sure, Diaz replied carefully. But they've found traces of an unknown substance in his foreline. They're testing it now. Someone tried to kill him, I said, the words falling like stones into the tense silence. Again. Hunter nodded grimly. It appears so, and despite our security measures. I need to go to him, Victoria insisted.
Please.
He's still my husband. The agents exchanged glances. It's not safe, Hunter began. I don't care, Victoria interrupted. If he's dying, I need to be there. After a brief discussion, it was decided that Victoria would be allowed to visit Derek under heavy security. I would remain at the FBI office with Walter, continuing to provide information about Jason Keller and the historical embezzlement scheme. As Victoria prepared to leave with Agent Diaz and several other officers, she paused at the door, turning back to me.
Mom?
If anything happens, if I don't see you again, don't talk like that, I said firmly. This will all be resolved. We'll get through it. She smiled sadly. If you say so. But just in case, I love you, despite everything. I always have. Before I could respond, she was gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click that somehow felt terribly final. Agent Hunter touched my arm gently. Mrs. Blackwood, we should continue. I nodded, forcing my attention back to the matter at hand. But a nagging sense of wrongness persisted. Something about Victoria's goodbye, about the timing of Derek's sudden decline, about Jason Keller's convenient revelations and equally convenient disappearance. Something wasn't adding up. And as the night wore on, with Walter dozing in a chair beside me and FBI technicians analyzing the thumb drive's contents in the next room, that sense of unease only grew. Jason Keller had said he came forward because he'd read about my lottery win, about Victoria calling me a burden at dinner. But how could he have known those details? The dinner had been private, family only. And while my lottery win had been processed through official channels, I had kept it out of the news, telling only Victoria, Walter, and a few close relatives. So, how did Jason know? Unless. I sat up straight, a terrible suspicion forming. Agent Hunter, I called. I need to see those surveillance reports from the hospital. The ones from when Derek tried to commit suicide. Hunter frowned.
Why?
Because I don't think he tried to commit suicide at all, I said slowly, the pieces falling into place. I think he was murdered, and I think I know who did it. Hunter studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll get the reports. But Mrs. Blackwood? If you're right, if someone inside our investigation is involved, you need to be extremely careful about who you share your suspicions with. I understand, I assured him, but time is running out. For all of us. As Hunter left to retrieve the reports, I glanced at Walter, still sleeping peacefully in his chair. My loyal friend, my steadfast advisor through all of this chaos. I thought of Victoria, on her way to Derek's bedside. Of Jason Keller, who had reappeared after 18 years with precisely the information needed to blow the case wide open. Too convenient. All of it. I pulled out my phone and, on a hunch, searched for news articles about the family dinner where Victoria had called me a burden. Nothing. As expected, it had been a private event. Then I searched for information about my lottery win. Again, nothing public. The Lottery Commission had honored my request for privacy, processing my claim without publicity. So, how had Jason known? How had he connected those two events, using them as his stated reason for coming forward now? The answer, when it came, was both blindingly obvious and utterly horrifying. He couldn't have known. Not unless someone directly involved had told him. Agent Hunter returned with a file folder. The surveillance reports from the prison hospital, he said, handing them to me. What are you looking for? The timing, I replied, flipping through the pages. When exactly did Derek attempt suicide? And who discovered him? Hunter pointed to a section in the report. 11:47 a.m. A guard named Michael Terrence found him during routine checks. And this guard, I pressed. Has he been interviewed? Extensively. His story checks out. I continued scanning the report, looking for any inconsistencies, any detail that might confirm my suspicion. And there it was, a small note at the bottom of page 3. Subject received visitor at 11:15 a.m. Visit concluded at 11:40 a.m. Who visited Derek just before his suicide attempt? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Hunter checked another document. His attorney, according to the log. And does it give the attorney's name? Winters. Patricia Winters. The same attorney Walter had arranged for Victoria. The pieces were falling into place with terrible clarity. Agent Hunter, I said carefully, I need to call my daughter. Right now. She's on her way to the hospital with Agent Diaz, he reminded me. That's what I'm afraid of, I replied, reaching for my phone. Because I don't think Derek tried to kill himself. I don't think Howard killed himself either. And I don't think Jason Keller sent that evidence to Howard or those anonymous texts to me. Hunter's expression sharpened. What are you saying? I'm saying someone has been orchestrating this entire situation. Someone who knew about my lottery win and the family dinner. Someone who had access to Malcolm's investigation. Someone who could move freely within the FBI investigation. I looked up at him, the final piece clicking into place. Someone like Victoria. Hunter stared at me, shock giving way to consideration. That's a serious accusation. Check the visitor logs at the prison for the day Derek attempted suicide, I urged. I'm betting Victoria was there, not just Patricia Winters. That doesn't prove. Then check Howard Cunningham's phone records for the night he died. See if Victoria called him. Check who had access to Derek's for today. Hunter was already moving, barking orders to his team. I tried calling Victoria, but the call went straight to voicemail. She's not answering, I told Hunter, panic rising. And Agent Diaz is with her. I'll try Diaz, Hunter said, pulling out his own phone. After a moment, his expression darkened. No answer. I'm tracking their vehicle now. Walter had woken during the commotion. Eleanor? What's happening? Victoria, I said simply. I think she's behind all of it. Howard's death. Derek's suicide attempt. The attempt on my life. That's impossible, Walter protested. She's been under surveillance. And why would she try to kill Derek? He's her husband. A husband who could implicate her in years of financial crimes, I pointed out. A husband who might have been ready to cut a deal with prosecutors at her expense. Hunter returned, his face grim. The tracking on Diaz's vehicle shows they're not heading toward the hospital. They've diverted to an industrial area near the waterfront. Can you reach the other agents in the convoy? I asked. We're trying. No response so far. Cold fear gripped me. We need to get there. Now. Mrs. Blackwood, if your daughter is indeed behind this, then Agent Diaz is in danger. I finished for him. And so is everyone else with her. Hunter nodded, decision made. I'll assemble a tactical team. But you're staying here. No, I said firmly. I'm coming with you. Eleanor, that's insane, Walter objected. If Victoria is dangerous. She's my daughter, I interrupted. If anyone can reach her, talk her down, it's me. Hunter studied me for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. You'll stay in the vehicle with an agent at all times. At the first sign of trouble, you'll be evacuated. Clear? Clear, I agreed. As Hunter's team prepared to move out, I sat quietly, the full weight of my suspicions settling over me. My daughter, my only child, a murder? It seemed impossible. And yet, the pieces fit. Victoria's financial involvement with Derek. Her desperation when the embezzlement was exposed. Her knowledge of both my lottery win and the family dinner. And hadn't she been at the hospital when Derek's condition suddenly deteriorated? Hadn't she insisted on going back there now with Agent Diaz? Eleanor. Walter touched my arm gently. Are you sure about this? About Victoria? I looked up at him, my oldest friend, the man who had stood beside me through every crisis. No, I admitted. I'm not sure, but I'm afraid I'm right. He nodded soberly. Then let's find out. Together. As we prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mom, I know you figured it out. Come alone to Pier 17. Just you. Or Diaz dies first. I showed the message to Hunter, who immediately began tracing the number while issuing new orders to his team. You're not going alone, he said firmly. This is clearly a trap. If I don't go, she'll kill him, I replied. You read the message. We'll set up a perimeter. Approach with caution. But you are not confronting her alone. I nodded, though a plan was already forming in my mind. A terrible, necessary plan. As we headed toward the waterfront, the weight of Edward's letter pressed against my heart from where I'd tucked it into my pocket. My husband had faced an impossible choice 15 years ago: expose Howard Cunningham's crimes and destroy Victoria's happiness, or remain silent and preserve her future at the cost of his integrity. Now I faced an equally impossible choice: protect my daughter from herself, or ensure justice was served, no matter the personal cost. Edward had chosen Victoria. He had chosen family. What would I choose? The waterfront loomed ahead, dark and foreboding in the pre-dawn light. Pier 17, an abandoned shipping terminal scheduled for demolition, stood at the far end, isolated from the other, still active piers. A perfect place for a confrontation. For an ending. Hunter's team took up positions surrounding the pier, while he and I remained in an unmarked vehicle just outside the perimeter. Remember, he instructed, you stay here. We'll attempt to make contact, to negotiate. I nodded, though we both knew I had no intention of following those instructions. As soon as Hunter left to confer with his tactical team, I slipped out of the vehicle and made my way toward the pier through the shadows. Victoria would be expecting me to come alone. And in this one thing, I would not disappoint her. The old warehouse at the end of the pier was cavernous, filled with rusting machinery and the skeletal remains of shipping crates. My footsteps echoed on the concrete floor as I entered, heart pounding in my chest. Victoria? I called. I'm here. Alone, as you asked. Movement in the shadows at the far end of the warehouse. Then Victoria stepped into a shaft of pale light from a high, broken window. She held a gun, the same one from the lake house, I realized, pointed not at me, but at Agent Diaz, who knelt before her, hands zip-tied behind his back. "Hello, Mother," she said calmly. "I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd actually come alone." "I didn't have much choice," I replied, moving slowly closer. "Not with Agent Diaz's life at stake." Victoria smiled thinly. "Always the martyr. Always the selfless one. It's your most irritating quality, you know." "Let him go, Victoria. Whatever you're planning, he's not part of it." "On the contrary," she countered. "He's very much part of it. Aren't you, Agent?" Diaz remained silent, his eyes flickering between Victoria and me, clearly assessing the situation, looking for an opening. "Don't try anything heroic," Victoria warned him. "I'm a better shot than you might think." Derek insisted I learn. "A Cunningham woman should know how to protect herself," he said. She laughed bitterly. "Ironic, considering I'm the one he needed protection from." "So it's true," I said quietly. "You tried to kill Derek. And Howard." "I did kill Howard," she corrected. "The old man was too arrogant to check his brandy for antifreeze. Then I staged the suicide, gun in hand, farewell note, the works. The police bought it completely. And Derek." "The first attempt failed," she admitted. "The prison guard interrupted before he was completely gone. But the second attempt, at the hospital, that would have succeeded if the FBI hadn't moved so quickly." "Why, Victoria?" I asked, taking another careful step forward. "Why kill your husband? Your father-in-law?" "Survival," she replied simply. "Howard knew everything about Derek's embezzlement, about my involvement. He was ready to throw us both to the wolves to save himself. And Derek." She laughed coldly. "Derek was negotiating a plea deal. He was going to testify against me, claim I was the mastermind behind it all." "Was that true?" I had to know. "Were you?" Something flickered in Victoria's eyes. Pride, perhaps. "Not at first. But later, yes. I saw opportunities Derek missed. Refinements to the scheme. Ways to hide the money more effectively." She shrugged. "I have a Harvard education, after all. Derek barely graduated from State College. And Jason Keller? Was he really your father's business partner?" "Oh, that part was true," Victoria confirmed. "And yes, we had an affair when I was 18. Edward found out, forced Jason out of the firm. But the rest? The evidence against Howard? The anonymous texts? That was all me, playing both sides. Why come back as Jason now? Why not just kill me directly?" "I needed to know what you knew," she explained. "How much evidence you had. Whether you suspected me. And..." She hesitated. "I needed to give you a chance, Mom. One last chance to choose me over justice." The echo of Edward's choice 15 years ago hung between us. By believing your story about Jason? By not questioning it. Exactly. If you had just accepted Jason's revelations, focused on the Cunninghams as the villains of the story, you could have kept your lottery winnings and your clear conscience. We could have moved forward, put all this behind us. With Howard and Derek dead, I noted. With you inheriting the Cunningham fortune. A happy coincidence, she admitted with a cold smile. But then you had to start asking questions. Checking facts. Being Eleanor Blackwood, moral compass to the world. "I'm just trying to understand," I said, taking another step closer. "Help me understand, Victoria." "Stay where you are," she warned, pressing the gun harder against Diaz's temple. "I don't want to hurt you, Mom, but I will if I have to." "Like you hurt your father?" I asked quietly.
Victoria flinched.
"What?" "Not Edward," I clarified. "Howard, your real father." The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about?" "It's in Edward's letter," I said, reaching slowly into my pocket to withdraw the yellowed envelope. The truth he kept from both of us all these years. Why he was so devastated when you started dating Derek. Why he felt such guilt about not exposing Howard's crimes. Victoria's hand trembled slightly. "You're lying." "Read it yourself," I offered, holding out the letter. "Your affair with Jason wasn't the first time Howard Cunningham inserted himself into our lives. He and I had a brief encounter while Edward was away on business. 9 months before you were born." Victoria stared at me, shock and disbelief warring on her face. That's impossible. You and Dad were already married when I was conceived.
Yes.
But Edward was in London for 3 weeks that spring. Howard and I met at a charity event. One thing led to another. I shook my head regretfully. When I realized I was pregnant, I confessed everything to Edward. He forgave me, agreed to raise you as his own. We never spoke of it again. Until Howard approached your firm about a partnership, I continued, improvising wildly, and Edward realized who he was. The man who had fathered his beloved daughter. The man who had slept with his wife. And now the man who wanted to do business with him. Criminal business. No, Victoria whispered, the gun lowering slightly. No, that can't be true. Why do you think Howard took such an interest in you from the beginning? Why he pushed Derek to pursue you?
He knew, Victoria.
He always knew you were his daughter. Victoria's composure cracked. Stop it. You're lying. You're just trying to distract me. Read the letter. I urged, taking another step closer. Edward explains everything. How he couldn't bear to expose Howard because it would mean revealing the truth about your parentage. How he made a devil's bargain to protect you from both the legal consequences and the personal revelation. Victoria's hand shook violently now, the gun wavering between Diaz and me. Give me the letter, she demanded. I held it out, just beyond her reach. Let Agent Diaz go first. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, with a quick motion, she stepped back from Diaz and gestured with the gun. Get up. Over there, against the wall. Diaz rose awkwardly, hands still bound behind him, and moved as directed. Victoria kept the gun trained on him while extending her other hand toward me. The letter.
Now.
I placed it in her palm, watching as she unfolded it with one hand, eyes scanning the contents. Confusion crossed her features. This doesn't say anything about Howard being my father, she said slowly. This is just about Dad discovering Howard's financial crimes. About protecting me from the Cunninghams' influence. I know, I replied calmly.
Elite.
Just like you've been lying. To me, to the FBI, to yourself. Her eyes widened in outrage. You. Before she could react, I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist and forcing the gun upward. We struggled, Victoria's strength surprising me despite her slender frame. The gun discharged, the shot echoing deafeningly in the cavernous warehouse. Mom, stop, Victoria shouted, trying to wrench free. You don't understand. I did all of this for us. For us? I echoed incredulously, maintaining my grip on her wrist. How is any of this for us? The money, she gasped, still fighting. Howard's estate. Derek's share of the firm. With them gone, it all comes to me.
Million, Mom.
More than your lottery winnings. Enough for both of us to disappear, start over somewhere new. After you murdered 2 people? After you tried to frame me? I was desperate. Her voice broke. When the embezzlement was exposed, I knew it was over.
Prison.
Disgrace. Losing everything. I couldn't face it. So, you decided murder was the answer? I asked, incredulous despite everything I already knew. Your own husband? Your father-in-law. They deserved it, she hissed. Howard was a monster. He used people like chess pieces. And Derek? He was going to sacrifice me to save himself. Just like he always did. With a sudden, violent twist, Victoria broke free of my grip. The gun came up between us, her finger on the trigger. I don't want to hurt you, Mom, she said, breathing hard. But I will if you don't back off. This is happening. I'm leaving, with or without you. Victoria, I said softly, raising my hands in a gesture of surrender. Think about what you're doing. Think about what your father, what Edward would say. Dad's gone, she replied, voice cracking. He's been gone for years, and he left me to face this alone.
No, I correcte Janli.
He left you with me, and I'm still here, still fighting for you even now. Something in my words seemed to reach her. The gun wavered. It's too late, she whispered. I've gone too far. There's no coming back from this. There's always a way back, I insisted. It won't be easy. There will be consequences, but we'll face them together. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I'd reached her. Then the warehouse doors burst open, FBI agents pouring in with weapons drawn, shouting orders. FBI, drop the weapon. On the ground now. Victoria's expression hardened, the momentary vulnerability vanishing. You led them here, she accused, backing away from me. You were stalling. No, Victoria. Drop the weapon. Hunter's voice cut through the chaos. This is your final warning. Victoria looked from the agents to me, then to Diaz, who had managed to work his way free of the zip ties and was now moving cautiously toward her from the side. A terrible resolve settled over her features. I'm sorry, Mom, she said quietly. I really did want us to start over together. Then, before anyone could react, she raised the gun, not to her head, as I had feared, but toward me. 2 shots rang out simultaneously. Victoria jerked backward, a red stain blooming on her shoulder where Diaz's bullet had struck her. Her own shot went wild, striking a support beam beside me. She crumpled to the ground, the gun clattering away across the concrete floor. I rushed to her side as agents secured the weapon and called for medical assistance. Victoria! I gathered her into my arms, pressing my hand against the wound to slow the bleeding. Stay with me. Help is coming. Her eyes found mine, pain and something like relief mingling in their depths. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. The dinner, the gun, the recording. I know, I said, tears streaming down my face. I know you are. Did you mean what you said? About facing the consequences together? I nodded, throat too tight for words. Even now, even after knowing what I've done, even now I managed. You're my daughter, Victoria. That hasn't changed. A faint smile touched her lips. Like father, like daughter, I guess. Dad chose family over justice too. He chose love, I corrected gently. And so do I. She closed her eyes briefly, a tear escaping down her cheek. It wasn't supposed to end this way. This isn't the end, I insisted as paramedics rushed in, gently moving me aside to tend to her wound. This is just another chapter. A difficult one, but not the last. As they loaded Victoria onto a stretcher, her hand reached for mine. I took it, holding tight as they carried her from the warehouse toward a waiting ambulance. Agent Hunter approached, his expression unreadable. She'll be taken to the hospital under guard. Once she's stabilized, she'll be formally charged. I understand, I said quietly. With her confession here and the evidence we've gathered, she's facing serious charges. Multiple murders, attempted murders, not to mention the financial crimes. I know. The weight of it all pressed down on me. The lives destroyed, the trust betrayed, the future irrevocably altered. You did the right thing, Hunter said, surprising me with the gentleness in his tone. Coming to us with your suspicions, helping us stop her before anyone else got hurt. But had I? The question echoed in my mind as I watched the ambulance doors close on my daughter's pale face. Had I done the right thing, or had I simply made the only choice I could live with? Edward had chosen silence to protect Victoria, carrying that burden alone for years. I had chosen truth, exposing her crimes even as I tried desperately to save her from herself. Different choices, same motivation, love. As dawn broke over the waterfront, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, I stood alone on the pier, Edward's letter clutched in my hand. The future stretched before me, uncertain and daunting. Victoria's trial, the media frenzy that would inevitably follow, the long and painful process of rebuilding what remained of my life. But for the first time since that fateful family dinner, I felt something like peace. Not happiness, certainly. Not even acceptance, not yet. But a quiet certainty that whatever came next, I would face it with the same strength that had carried me this far. The lottery money, my $5 million, would go toward Victoria's defense, toward restitution for the victims of the Cunningham embezzlement schemes, toward healing whatever wounds could still be healed. And I would be there every step of the way. in courtrooms and prison visiting rooms, in therapy sessions and quiet moments of reflection, bearing witness to my daughter's accountability, her punishment, and perhaps, someday, her redemption. Because that's what family does. Not enable, not excuse, but accompany, stand beside, hold space for both justice and mercy. Edward had taught me that in his way, and now, in my own way, I would teach it to Victoria. As I turned to leave the pier, Walter approached, concern etched in his features. "Eleanor, are you all right?" I considered the question carefully. "No," I answered honestly, "but I will be. Eventually." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "What happens now?" I tucked Edward's letter carefully into my pocket, a reminder of choices made and consequences faced. "Now," I said, "we begin again." Together, we walked away from the pier, away from the warehouse where everything had ended and everything had begun anew. Behind us, the rising sun cast our shadows long upon the ground, stretching forward, always forward, into whatever lay ahead. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text message. I pulled it out, expecting Hunter or the hospital with news about Victoria. Instead, it was from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Eleanor. Some secrets stay buried for a reason."
G.
I stared at the screen, a chill running through me despite the morning warmth. Jason Keller, the real Jason Keller, was still out there. And apparently, he had more to say. I deleted the message without showing Walter. One crisis at a time. One truth at a time. One day at a time. That was all any of us could handle. "This isn't over, Eleanor. Some secrets stay buried for a reason."
G.
The text message haunted me in the weeks that followed Victoria's arrest. While my life descended into a chaotic blur of FBI interviews, attorney meetings, and hospital visits, that cryptic warning lingered like a shadow at the edge of my consciousness. Who was Jay? The real Jason Keller? Someone else entirely? And what secrets remained buried that were dangerous enough to prompt such a warning? I kept the message to myself. Walter, Agent Hunter, even Victoria, none of them needed another complication. We had enough to manage already. Victoria's shoulder wound had healed without complications, but her legal situation was terminal. Multiple murder charges, attempted murder, conspiracy, financial fraud. The list seemed endless, the potential sentences measured in decades rather than years. Howard Cunningham's death had been officially ruled a homicide, the suicide note confirmed as a forgery in Victoria's handwriting. Derek remained in a coma, his prognosis uncertain. The doctors spoke in careful terms about significant neurological deficits, even if he did wake up. And throughout it all, I visited my daughter every day, first in the hospital, then in the county detention center. We spoke about everything and nothing, carefully circling the enormity of what she had done, what lay ahead for her. "Patricia says they're offering a deal," Victoria told me during one such visit, her voice flat, depleted. The orange jumpsuit hung loosely on her frame. She'd lost weight, her once perfect appearance now haggard and drawn. "What kind of deal?" I asked. 25 years. Eligible for parole after 15. She laughed hollowly. A bargain, apparently, considering I'd get life without parole if convicted at trial. "What does Patricia recommend?" "Taking it." Victoria's eyes met mine through the visitor's room glass. "She says a jury would crucify me. Young, privileged woman kills her husband and father-in-law for money? They'll see me as a monster." "And what do you think?" I asked carefully. She was silent for a long moment. I think I am a monster, Mom. I killed Howard. I tried to kill Derek. I threatened you with a gun. I tried to frame you." Her voice broke. "What kind of person does those things?" "A desperate one," I said gently. "A scared one." "Don't make excuses for me," she snapped, a flash of the old Victoria breaking through. I knew exactly what I was doing. Every step, every decision. I chose this. "Not all of it," I countered. "You didn't choose the embezzlement investigation. You didn't choose Derek's betrayal. But I chose how to respond," she insisted. "And I chose wrong. So, very wrong. I couldn't argue with that. Instead, I asked, "Are you going to take the deal?" Victoria sighed, suddenly looking far older than her 34 years.
Yes.
There's too much evidence. The gun from the lake house, the forged suicide note, the hospital security footage showing me tampering with Derek's for, my confession at the warehouse. She shook her head. Fighting would just waste what little time I have left. The finality in her voice broke my heart. Despite everything, the betrayals, the threats, the manipulations, she was still my daughter. And I was losing her to a prison cell for what might well be the rest of my life. I'll be there, I promised. For the sentencing. For visiting days. For whatever comes next. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. The loyal mother. To the bitter end. Why, Mom? After everything I've done to you? Because some bonds can't be broken, I replied simply. Not even by the worst mistakes. The deepest betrayals. You sound like Dad, she said softly. He always believed in redemption. In second chances. He was a wise man. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I miss him. Every day. Especially now. She hesitated, then added, "Do you think he would have forgiven me? For all of this?" The question pierced me. What would Edward have said about the daughter he had raised, the woman she had become, the crimes she had committed? I think, I said carefully, that he would have been heartbroken by your choices. But he would never have stopped loving you. Never stopped hoping for your healing, your redemption. Like you, she whispered. Like me, I agreed. The guard announced that visiting hours were ending. Victoria pressed her palm against the glass, and I matched it with my own. The closest we could come to an embrace in this sterile, regulated environment. One more thing, she said as I stood to leave. About that man who came to the house. The one who claimed to be Jason Keller. I tensed. What about him? He wasn't Jason. I know that, I said. You admitted to impersonating him at the warehouse. She shook her head. No, you don't understand. I hired someone to play that role. An actor. But the real Jason Keller is still out there somewhere. A chill ran through me. How do you know? Because I tried to find him before setting up the imposter. To make sure he wouldn't suddenly appear and ruin my plan. Victoria's expression was troubled. He disappeared 18 years ago. Completely off the grid. No financial records, no property, no social media. Nothing. Until now, I murmured, thinking of the text message. Victoria's eyes narrowed. What do you mean, until now? I hesitated, then decided honesty was the only path forward. I received a text after your arrest. From someone claiming to be Jason, warning me that some secrets should stay buried. The color drained from Victoria's face. Mom, listen to me carefully. If that really was Jason Keller, you're in danger.
Why?
What do you know about him? She glanced nervously at the guard, then leaned closer to the glass. Only what Derek told me. That Jason didn't just leave town after Dad forced him out of the firm. He was paid to disappear. By Howard. Paid? Why would Howard? I don't know, Victoria interrupted. Derek wouldn't say. Just that it was insurance of some kind. That Jason knew things that could destroy the Cunningham family. More than the embezzlement? I asked, confused. Apparently. Victoria looked genuinely frightened now. Mom, please be careful. Get protection. Talk to Agent Hunter. The guard stepped forward, indicating that our time was definitely up. Victoria stood, desperation in her eyes. Promise me, she insisted. Promise you'll be careful.
I promise, I är här. Don't worry about me.
But as I drove home from the detention center, worry was all I could feel. Victoria's warning, coupled with the mysterious text, painted a troubling picture. What could Jason Keller possibly know that was more damaging than the embezzlement schemes that had already been exposed? And why contact me now, after all these years of silence? I decided to call Walter as soon as I got home, to share these new developments and get his advice. But as I pulled into my driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked across the street, a nondescript sedan with tinted windows. Watching. Waiting. Instinct told me to keep driving, to call Hunter immediately. But curiosity, or perhaps fatigue with running from shadows, won out. I parked in my driveway and sat watching the sedan in my rearview mirror, waiting to see what would happen next. After a few minutes, the driver's door opened and a man stepped out, tall, gray-haired, his face weathered but still handsome in a rugged way. He stood beside his car, making no move to approach, simply watching me with an intensity one could feel even at this distance. Jason Keller. The real one this time. I was certain of it. I took out my phone, finger hovering over Hunter's number. Then, against all better judgment, I got out of my car and walked to the edge of my driveway. "Mr. Keller?" I called. He inclined his head slightly. "Mrs. Blackwood, you recognize me after all these years. I'm flattered. What do you want?" I asked directly. "A conversation," he replied. "Private and unrecorded."
About what?
"Edward. Howard. Victoria." His gaze was steady. "The things you still don't know." I hesitated, every instinct screaming danger. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," he said simply. "But you will. Because you need answers more than you need safety right now." He was right, damn him. After everything that had happened, I craved understanding more than protection. The truth, however ugly, had become my North Star. Not here, I decided. Too many neighbors. Too many eyes. "The park at the end of the street," he suggested. "Public enough to be safe. Private enough to talk freely." I nodded. "I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. "Come alone," he warned. "No lawyers. No FBI." "I'm not a fool, Mr. Keller," I replied coolly. "I'll tell someone where I'm going and who I'm meeting. Insurance, you understand." A smile touched his lips. "Edward taught you well." I watched him drive away before returning to my house, heart pounding. Inside, I called Walter, giving him Jason's description, the location of our meeting, and strict instructions to call Agent Hunter if I didn't check in within an hour. "Eleanor, this is insane," Walter protested. "Let the FBI handle this. Let them pick him up, question him properly, and lose our chance at the truth." I countered. "Walter, he knows something. Something important enough to bring him out of hiding after 18 years. Or, he's dangerous. Victoria certainly seemed to think so. I'll be careful. I promised. Public place.
Daytime.
My phone recording everything. But I need to hear what he has to say." Walter sighed, recognizing the futility of arguing. 1 hour. Then I'm calling Hunter. Fair enough. I changed into walking shoes, slipped my phone into my pocket with the recorder running, and headed for the park. Jason was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the small pond where Victoria had fed ducks as a child. "You came," he observed as I sat beside him, maintaining a careful distance. "I want answers," I replied simply. "About everything." "Where would you like to begin?" I considered the question. "With Edward. The letter he left with you. Was it genuine?" Jason nodded. "Every word. Edward did discover Howard's embezzlement schemes 15 years ago. He did choose silence to protect Victoria. And your affair with my daughter? Was that true as well?" A shadow crossed his face.
Yes.
Not my proudest moment. She was technically an adult, but young. Vulnerable in ways I should have recognized. "Why are you here now?" I asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. "After all these years of silence, what's changed?" Jason was quiet for a moment, watching a pair of mallards glide across the pond's surface. "Several things," he said finally. "Victoria's arrest. Howard's death. Derek's condition. But mostly guilt." "Guilt about what?" "About my role in all of this." He turned to face me fully. "Eleanor, what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about your husband. About your daughter. About the past 18 years. "I'm listening," I said, bracing myself. Jason took a deep breath. "Howard Cunningham didn't just embezzle from his clients. He used that money to fund illegal activities, money laundering for certain international interests, bribing officials, financing operations I prefer not to name explicitly. Criminal enterprises," I translated. "Beyond criminal," Jason corrected. "Dangerous. the kind that get people killed if they ask too many questions. And Edward discovered this?
Yes.
While investigating Howard's business practices before Victoria and Derek's engagement. He found financial trails leading to organizations that, let's just say, they were on several government watch lists. Why didn't he go to the authorities? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Initially, for Victoria's sake, Jason confirmed. He didn't want to destroy her relationship with Derek. But then Howard made it clear that speaking out would have consequences. Not legal ones. Lethal ones. A chill ran through me. Howard threatened Edward's life. Not explicitly. Howard was too clever for that. But he made certain Edward understood the stakes. The people Howard was involved with didn't tolerate exposure. Anyone who threatened their operations simply disappeared. And Edward believed him? Jason's expression darkened. Howard provided proof. Names of people who had asked questions and subsequently died in accidents. Financial records disappeared. Whistleblowers discredited, then found dead months later. He shook his head. Edward was terrified, not for himself, but for you and Victoria. So, he remained silent, I said quietly. He did more than that, Jason replied. He actively helped conceal Howard's activities. I stared at him. That's not possible. Edward would never. He did, Jason interrupted gently. To protect you both. Howard made it clear that Edward's silence wasn't enough. He needed to become complicit. To have skin in the game, as Howard put it. And my affair with Victoria? I asked, the pieces beginning to align. How did that fit in? It was a mistake, Jason acknowledged. A genuine attraction that I should have resisted. But when Edward discovered it, Howard saw an opportunity. He used it as additional leverage, not just against me, but against Edward as well.
How?
By threatening to tell Victoria that Edward had known about Howard's crimes for years. That her beloved father had facilitated them to save himself. Jason's expression was grim. Howard understood people's pressure points. For Edward, it was Victoria's respect. The idea that she might see him as corrupt, as weak, it was unbearable to him. The picture Jason painted was both foreign and painfully familiar. Edward, my principled, honorable husband, caught in an impossible situation. Making choices I would never have believed him capable of. What was your role in all this? I asked. Initially, a victim like Edward, Jason replied. Forced out of the firm, paid to disappear. But later, he hesitated. Howard found me, offered me a choice, work for him, helping to conceal his financial activities, or face certain consequences. And you chose to work for him. I did, he admitted. For several years, until I couldn't stomach it anymore and truly disappeared. New name, new life, new country for a while. Until now, I noted. Why come back? Why contact me? Jason's expression became deadly serious. Because Howard's death doesn't end the danger. The people he was working with are still out there. And they're nervous about what might come out during Victoria's trial. Victoria doesn't know about any of this, I protested. She only knew about the embezzlement. Are you certain? Jason asked quietly. Victoria is Howard's protege in more ways than you realize. She's been involved in the family business since before she married Derek. No. I shook my head firmly. She admitted to the embezzlement, to killing Howard, to attempting to kill Derek. Why would she confess to those crimes but conceal others? Because these aren't just crimes, Eleanor. They're connections to people who make Howard Cunningham look like a small-time crook. People who would ensure Victoria never reached a courtroom if they thought she might implicate them. Fear, cold and insistent, crept up my spine. Are you saying Victoria is in danger? I'm saying everyone connected to this case is in danger, Jason corrected.
Victoria. You.
The FBI agents investigating. Even me for speaking with you now. What do these people want? Silence. Containment. For Victoria's case to be resolved quickly and quietly with no mention of Howard's external activities or connections. And if that doesn't happen, Jason's gaze was steady. Then they'll ensure silence by other means. Why are you telling me this? I demanded. If it puts you in danger? If it puts me in danger? Because Edward would have wanted me to, he said simply. Because despite everything, my affair with Victoria, my years working for Howard, Edward never stopped believing I had a conscience. And he was right. I studied Jason's face, searching for deception, for manipulation. I found only weariness and what appeared to be genuine concern. What do you expect me to do with this information? I asked finally. Speak to Victoria. Find out what she knows about Howard's external connections. Then speak to the FBI, not just Agent Hunter, but higher up. There are people in the Bureau who have been tracking these organizations for years. They'll understand the implications. And then what? Then you both get protection, Jason said firmly. Witness protection, if necessary. New identities. New lives. Far from here. The suggestion was so outlandish, so extreme, that I almost laughed. Leave everything behind? My home? My friends? Start over completely at 62. If the alternative is not reaching 63, yes, Jason replied bluntly. You really believe the threat is that serious? I know it is. He stood up abruptly. I've stayed too long already. They might be watching. Who is they? I pressed. Ask Victoria, he said, already walking away. She knows them by name. Wait. I called after him. How do I contact you? He turned back briefly. You don't. I'll contact you after you've spoken to Victoria. Then he was gone, striding quickly toward the park entrance where his car was parked. I remained on the bench, mind reeling with these new revelations. Edward, involved in covering up serious crimes. Victoria, potentially connected to dangerous criminal organizations. Threats against all of us. It seemed too fantastical to be true. And yet, the embezzlement had been real. Victoria's murders had been real. The gun at the lake house, the recording device, the warehouse confrontation, all real. Why should this new layer of conspiracy be any less believable? I made my obligatory check-in call to Walter, assuring him I was fine while revealing nothing of what Jason had told me. Then I drove directly to the detention center, arriving just as evening visiting hours were beginning. Victoria looked surprised to see me again so soon. Mom, is everything okay? We need to talk, I said without preamble. About Howard's business associates. The ones outside Cunningham Investment Group. Her face went perfectly still, a reaction that told me more than words could have. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, I countered. Jason Keller found me today. The real Jason. Fear flickered in her eyes. What did he tell you? Enough to know that Howard was involved with dangerous people. That his embezzlement-funded activities far worse than financial fraud. That you might know who these people are. Victoria glanced nervously at the guard standing near the door, then leaned closer to the glass separating us. We can't talk about this here, she whispered. We have to, I insisted. Jason says you're in danger. That we all are. She closed her eyes briefly. He's right. So it's true? All of it. Not here, she repeated urgently. Not now. Request a private attorney meeting for tomorrow. Patricia can arrange it. No guards. No recordings. Victoria. Please, Mom, she begged, real fear in her eyes. If they hear us discussing this, if they think I might talk. Who is they? I demanded. She shook her head minutely. Tomorrow. Private room. I'll tell you everything then. I reluctantly agreed, recognizing the genuine terror in my daughter's expression. Whatever she knew, whatever she was involved in, it clearly terrified her far more than her current legal troubles. The next day, Patricia arranged the private meeting room typically used for attorney-client discussions. Victoria arrived escorted by guards who then withdrew, leaving us truly alone for the first time since her arrest. We don't have much time, she said immediately. So listen carefully.
I'm listening. Jeg skjult her.
Victoria took a deep breath. Howard wasn't just an investment manager. That was his cover. His real business was moving money for certain international interests, some political, some criminal, all dangerous. And you knew about this?
Not at first, she said.
When Derek and I got engaged, Howard kept me at arm's length from the family business. It was only after we'd been married a few years that he started bringing me in, gradually, testing my reactions, my loyalty. And you went along with it, I observed, keeping my tone neutral. I did. Victoria met my gaze directly. At first out of fascination, later out of fear. Once you know about these operations, there's no walking away. You're either useful to them, or you're a liability. And liabilities don't last long. Who are they, Victoria? Names. She shook her head. I only know code names, shell companies. Howard protected me from direct contact, a kindness, in his way. But you know what they do, I pressed. What Howard helped them do. Yes. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. Money laundering. Financing certain operations. Political destabilization in regions where their interests were threatened. Elimination of obstacles. Elimination, I repeated. You mean murder. Among other things. Victoria looked genuinely haunted. Mom, these people, they make the Cunninghams look like amateurs. Their reach is global. Their resources nearly unlimited. And Howard's embezzlement. How did that connect? It provided untraceable funds, she explained. Money that didn't officially exist, that couldn't be followed back to the original clients or to Howard's associates. And Derek? Was he involved too?
Victoria laughed bitterly.
Derek was Howard's puppet. He knew only what Howard wanted him to know, enough to be useful, not enough to be dangerous if he ever decided to talk. Unlike you, I noted. Unlike me, she agreed quietly. Howard trusted me more than his own son. Said I had better instincts, better judgment. Until you killed him, I pointed out.
Victoria flinched.
That wasn't about his external activities. That was about the embezzlement exposure. About Derek preparing to sacrifice me to save himself. And now? Are these people concerned you might expose them during your trial? They're terrified of it, she confirmed. That's why I took the plea deal so quickly. 25 years is better than a bullet in the head, for me and for you. Cold fear washed through me. They've threatened me? Not explicitly. But the message was clear. Keep the trial focused on the embezzlement and the murders, nothing else, or there would be consequences. For both of us. How did they contact you? In here. My attorney, Victoria said quietly. Patricia. She's not directly involved with them, but she has connections. People who pay her bills. People who made it clear that my best option was a quick, quiet plea with no mention of Howard's external activities.
I ser det her, horrified.
Your own attorney is compromised? Everyone is compromised, Mom. That's what I'm trying to tell you. These people have influence everywhere, law enforcement, legal system, business, politics. The FBI? Agent Hunter? I don't know, she admitted, but I wouldn't risk it. I sat back, mind reeling. If Victoria was telling the truth, and her fear certainly seemed genuine, we were facing a threat far beyond anything I had imagined. What do we do? I asked finally. Nothing, Victoria said firmly. I serve my sentence. You live your life. We never speak of Howard's connections again. That's the only safe path forward. And if I'm not willing to accept that, a flash of the old Victoria, determined, calculating, crossed her face. Then you'd better have a plan that doesn't get us both killed. I thought of Jason's suggestion, witness protection, new identities, starting over completely. It had seemed absurd yesterday. Now it felt like our only option. Maybe I do, I said carefully. But I need to know something first. How deep were you involved, Victoria? Did you just know about these activities, or did you participate? She held my gaze steadily. Does it matter? Would it change how you feel about me? What you're willing to do to protect me? I need to know what I'm dealing with, I insisted. The whole truth this time. Victoria sighed, shoulders slumping slightly. I helped create the financial structures, the layered accounts, the shell companies. I designed systems to move money invisibly through legitimate businesses.
She paused.
I never ordered violence, never participated in it directly, but I knew it happened, and I continued working for Howard anyway. It wasn't a complete exoneration, but it wasn't the worst I had feared either. Thank you for being honest. What's your plan? She asked, changing the subject. I need to think, I replied. Talk to some people I trust. Figure out our options. Be careful who you trust, Victoria warned. And, whatever you're planning, move quickly. My sentencing is in 3 days. Once that's done, once the case is officially closed, my value as a potential witness drops significantly. Meaning they might decide I'm no longer worth keeping alive, she said bluntly. Or you, by extension. I reached across the table, taking her hand. I won't let that happen. To either of us. For the first time since her arrest, I saw a glimmer of hope in Victoria's eyes. I believe you, she said softly. God help me. After everything, I still believe in you. That afternoon, I made a series of careful decisions. First, I didn't call Walter. Much as I trusted him, Victoria's warning about being careful had struck home. The fewer people involved, the better. Instead, I drove to the FBI field office and asked to speak with Agent Hunter's superior, not Hunter himself. I was shown into the office of Assistant Director Carolyn Reese, a stern-faced woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Blackwood, she greeted me. This is unexpected. Agent Hunter has been handling your daughter's case. That's why I'm here, I said. I need to speak with someone above Agent Hunter. About matters he may not be aware of. Interest flickered in her eyes. What kind of matters? Howard Cunningham's connections to certain international interests. The use of embezzled funds to finance illegal operations. The current threats against my daughter and myself if this information becomes public. Reese's expression didn't change, but she reached over and pressed a button on her desk phone. Cancel my next appointment. And ensure we're not disturbed. Then she leaned forward. Tell me everything, Mrs. Blackwood. From the beginning. For the next hour, I laid out the entire story, Jason's revelations, Victoria's confirmation, the pressure on her to take a quick plea deal, the implied threats against both of us. Reese listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she sat back, studying me thoughtfully. You realize these are extraordinary claims. I do. Claims that, if true, implicate powerful individuals and organizations. Yes. And you've brought them to me based on information from a man who disappeared 18 years ago and your daughter, who is a confessed murderer. Put that way, it did sound rather thin. I understand how it sounds. I acknowledged. But I believe them. And I believe we're in danger. Reese was silent for a long moment, then pressed another button on her phone. Jenkins, bring me file CR 7739A. Personal delivery. She turned back to me. Mrs. Blackwood, what I'm about to tell you is classified. You will never repeat it to anyone. Understood? I nodded, suddenly nervous. Howard Cunningham has been on our radar for over a decade, she said. Not for embezzlement, that was just his funding mechanism. For his connections to a network we call the Consortium. A loose alliance of financial, political, and criminal interests operating across national boundaries. My breath caught. Then you know. About all of it. We know pieces, Reese corrected. Howard was careful. Compartmentalized. Used cutouts and proxies for most of his dealings. We've never been able to build a solid case against the larger network. Until now, I suggested. With Victoria's testimony, Reese's expression was guarded. Potentially. If she knows enough. If she's willing to cooperate fully. She's terrified, I pointed out. Convinced these people will kill her and me if she talks. Her concerns aren't unfounded, Reese acknowledged. The Consortium has eliminated witnesses before. A knock at the door interrupted us. A young agent entered with a thick file folder, which he handed to Reese before departing silently. Reese opened the file, scanning its contents. According to this, Victoria Cunningham has been under investigation as a potential Consortium associate for 3 years. What? I gasped. But that's... Before the embezzlement case, Reese confirmed. Before her murders. We've had concerns about her role in Howard's operations for some time. She says she only handled the financial structures. I said defensively. She wasn't involved in the other activities. Perhaps, Reese replied, non-committal. But she knows names, methods, operations. She's valuable, to us and to them. What are you suggesting? Reese closed the file, fixing me with a direct gaze. I'm suggesting that your daughter has a choice to make. Serve her 25 years in regular custody, always looking over her shoulder, always vulnerable. Or, I prompted when she didn't continue. Or cooperate with us against the consortium. Provide testimony, documentation, everything she knows. In exchange for placement in a secure federal facility under protected status. And witness protection for you, just as Jason had suggested. Would that be enough? To keep us safe? Nothing is guaranteed, Reese said honestly. But we would provide the highest level of protection available. New identities, relocation, ongoing security monitoring. And in return, Victoria helps you bring down this consortium. Exactly. Reese leaned forward. Mrs. Blackwood, I need to be clear about something. Your daughter is not an innocent in this. Her involvement with the Cunningham financial operations makes her complicit in serious crimes, beyond the murders she's already confessed to. I understand that, I said quietly. But she's also a potential key to unlocking a network we've been trying to dismantle for years. Her testimony could save lives, prevent future crimes, make a real difference. At considerable risk to herself, I noted. Yes, Reese acknowledged. But she's already facing 25 years in prison. This gives her purpose, protection, and perhaps, eventually, a reduced sentence in exchange for her cooperation. It wasn't a perfect solution. It carried risks, uncertainties. But it offered something Victoria's current situation didn't. Hope. I need to discuss this with her, I said, before her sentencing hearing. Of course. Reese wrote something on a card and handed it to me. My direct number. Call me when you've spoken with her. But Mrs. Blackwood? Move quickly. Once Victoria is sentenced, once the case is officially closed in the public eye, her value to the consortium drops significantly. And her risk increases, I concluded. Precisely. I left the FBI office with the weight of impossible choices pressing down on me. Victoria was right, she was in danger. We both were. But the solution meant asking her to turn against people who had already demonstrated their willingness to kill those who threatened their interests. Could I ask that of her? Should I? As I pulled into my driveway, my phone rang, an unknown number. Expecting Jason, I answered cautiously. Mrs. Blackwood? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. This is Dr. Martinez from Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Derek Cunningham. My heart skipped. Has something happened? He's awake, she said simply. And he's asking for you. Of all the unexpected developments in this saga, Derek regaining consciousness might have been the most surprising. I drove to the hospital in a daze, trying to imagine what he could possibly want with me. The Derek I found in the hospital room was a shadow of the arrogant, handsome man who had married my daughter. Thin, pale, with the right side of his face partially paralyzed, the neurological damage the doctors had warned about. Eleanor, he greeted me, his speech slightly slurred. Thank you for coming. The police officer stationed outside the door had remained in the room, positioned discreetly in the corner. Derek was, after all, still under arrest, even if he was currently incapacitated. You asked to see me, I said, remaining standing at the foot of his bed. Why? To warn you, he replied, each word clearly an effort. About Victoria. I know what she did, I said. To Howard.
To you.
He shook his head slightly. Not that. Bigger. Worse. I glanced at the officer, then back to Derek. Perhaps we should speak privately. No time, Derek insisted. They're watching. Listening. Everywhere. Who is? Consortium, he whispered, the word sending a chill through me. Victoria's their asset now. Has been for years. What are you talking about? I asked, keeping my expression neutral despite my racing heart. Howard recruited her. Early. Saw her potential. Derek's unaffected. I held mine intently. Trained her. Positioned her. His successor. Successor in what? Consortium operations. North American Division. Derek attempted to shift position, wincing with the effort. I was just the front. The name. Victoria was the power. Always. If Derek was telling the truth, Victoria's role had been far more significant than she'd admitted. Not just designing financial systems. A leadership position. Howard's chosen successor. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because she'll come for me again, Derek said, fear evident in his voice. And for you? Loose ends. Victoria is in custody, I reminded him. Awaiting sentencing. Derek laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Won't stop her. Consortium reaches everywhere. Prison. Hospital. Your home. What do you suggest I do? Run, he said simply.
Far. Now.
Before sentencing. Why would Victoria target me? I pressed. I'm her mother. Knows too much, Derek replied. Liability now. A nurse entered, checking Derek's monitors with a concerned expression. Mr. Cunningham, your blood pressure is elevated. You need to rest. Eleanor, Derek called as the nurse began adjusting his medication. Trust no one, especially Victoria. She's not who you think. The nurse increased his foredrip, and Derek's eyelids began to droop. Run, he murmured again as unconsciousness claimed him. Run now. I left the hospital more confused than ever. Derek's warnings contradicted Victoria's portrayal of herself as merely a financial facilitator. They aligned more with Reese's suggestion that Victoria had been under investigation as a consortium associate for years. Who was telling the truth? Victoria, claiming limited involvement driven by fear? Derek, painting her as Howard's chosen successor in their criminal enterprise? Or was the truth somewhere in between? I needed to see Victoria again. To confront her with Derek's claims. To present Reese's offer. To find out, once and for all, who my daughter really was. But as I drove toward the detention center, my phone rang. Assistant Director Reese. Mrs. Blackwood, she said without preamble. Where are you right now? Driving to see Victoria. Why? Turn around, she ordered. Come to the FBI office immediately. There's been a development. What kind of development? Reese hesitated. There was an incident at the detention center 30 minutes ago. Victoria Cunningham was attacked by another inmate. Ice flooded my veins. Is she? She's alive, Reese assured me quickly. But injured. Being treated at the secure medical facility within the center. I need to see her, I insisted. Not possible right now. And potentially dangerous for both of you. Reese's voice hardened. Mrs. Blackwood, this was no random prison violence. The attacker had connections to a shell company we've linked to the consortium. This was a hit, poorly executed, but clearly intended. Oh God, I whispered. Come to my office, Reese repeated. We need to move quickly now. The consortium has made its first move. We need to be ready for the next one. At the FBI office, Reese laid out a plan that seemed equal parts terrifying and necessary. Immediate protective custody for Victoria, transferred to a secure federal facility under an assumed name. Witness protection for me, with relocation across the country. Both contingent on Victoria's full cooperation against the consortium. We've already begun the paperwork, Reese explained. But we need Victoria's statement, her agreement to cooperate, before we can proceed. She's injured. I protested. Superficial wounds, Reese assured me. Defensive injuries to her arms and hands. She'll recover fully. I need to see her first, I insisted. To talk to her about this decision. Reese shook her head. Too risky. The consortium clearly has reach inside the detention center. Any visit from you now would draw attention. Then how do we get our agreement? A secure video link, Reese decided. From here to the medical facility. Encrypted. Limited participation. An hour later, Victoria's face appeared on the screen in Reese's office, pale, with a bandage visible on her cheek and her right arm in a sling, but alert. Mom, she said, clearly surprised. What's going on? They said this was an attorney consultation. It's more than that, I explained, with Reese sitting silently beside me. Victoria, I know about the consortium, about your role in it. I've spoken with Assistant Director Reese here and with Derek. Victoria's expression changed, hardening. Derek's awake? What did he tell you? That you were more than just a financial facilitator. That you were Howard's chosen successor in the consortium operations. She was silent for a long moment. And you believe him? I don't know what to believe anymore, I said honestly. But I know you're in danger. That attack today wasn't random. No, she agreed quietly. It wasn't. The FBI is offering you protection, I continued. Secure federal facility. New identity. In exchange for your testimony against the consortium.
Victoria laughed bitterly.
Testimony that will guarantee they never stop hunting me. Or you. They're already hunting us, I pointed out. At least this way, we have protection. Mom, you don't understand what you're dealing with, Victoria insisted. These people, their reach, their resources. No protection is enough if they really want you dead. Then what do you suggest? I demanded. You serve your 25 years. Always looking over your shoulder? I spend the rest of my life waiting for them to come for me? Is that better? Victoria looked away, conflict clear on her face. I never wanted you involved in this, she said softly. Any of it. But I am involved, I replied. And now we need to decide, together, how to survive it. She was quiet for so long, I thought the connection might have frozen. Finally, she looked back at the camera, determination in her eyes. Derek was right, she admitted. About my role. I wasn't just designing financial systems. I was being groomed to take over Howard's position. To lead the North American operations. Why lie about it? I asked. Because I was ashamed, she said simply. Not of the power. Of how much I enjoyed it. How good I was at it. She shook her head. I wanted you to think I was a victim of circumstances, not an architect of them. Despite everything, I felt a surge of something like pride. My daughter, brilliant, capable, chosen to lead, even if what she led was criminal. And now, I pressed. Will you cooperate? Help the FBI dismantle the organization. Victoria considered the question carefully. If I do this, there's no going back. No normal life. Ever. There's no normal life waiting for either of us anyway, I pointed out. Not anymore. True. She smiled faintly. What about you? Witness protection means leaving everything behind. Your home, your friends, your identity. Are you prepared for that? I am, I said firmly. If it means we both survive. If it means making something meaningful out of this disaster. Victoria's eyes filled with unexpected tears. After everything I've done to you, everything I've put you through, you'd still give up your entire life to protect me? You're my daughter, I said simply. That hasn't changed. She nodded, decision made. Then yes, I'll cooperate. Fully. Names, operations, financial structures, everything I know. Reese leaned forward, speaking for the first time. Miss Cunningham, you understand what this means? The extent of your cooperation? The risks involved? I understand, Victoria confirmed. But I have conditions. Which are? My mother's safety is the priority. Her new identity, her relocation, all of it happens immediately. Before I provide any testimony. That can be arranged, Reese agreed. And I want communication with her, Victoria continued. Secure, obviously, but regular. I need to know she's safe. We can establish protocols for that as well. Then we have a deal, Victoria said. I'll tell you everything. Every name. Every operation. Every financial structure. I'll burn the entire consortium to the ground. The determination in her voice sent a chill through me, not of fear, but of recognition. This was Edward's daughter after all. Principled, resolute, willing to face consequences. It had simply taken her far longer to find that core of integrity. We'll begin preparations immediately, Reese said, standing. Mrs. Blackwood, you'll be moved to a secure location tonight. Ms. Cunningham, You'll be transferred to a federal medical facility under armed guard within the hour. As Reese stepped away to make the necessary calls, I leaned closer to the screen.
Victoria?
Are you sure about this? No, she admitted with a small smile. But I'm sure about you. About us. And that's enough. I love you, I said, the words simple but profound after everything we'd been through. I love you too, Mom, she replied, her voice catching. Even when I was at my worst, I never stopped. I know, I assured her. Neither did I. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. FBI agents packed essential items from my home while I sat in Reese's office, filling out endless forms and receiving briefings on my new identity, my relocation protocol, the rules of witness protection. By dawn, I was on a private jet heading west, leaving behind Eleanor Blackwood and becoming someone new, Catherine Miller, retired librarian, moving to Oregon to be closer to nature in her golden years. Victoria, I was told, had been safely transferred to a secure federal medical facility under the name Jennifer Hayes. Her formal cooperation had begun with a detailed statement about the consortium's structure, leadership, and operations. The information was already generating arrests, asset seizures, and international investigations. 3 months later, I sat in my small but comfortable cottage on the Oregon coast, watching waves crash against the shore as a storm rolled in. My new life was quiet, constrained by security protocols but peaceful in its way. Twice monthly, I received encrypted video calls from Jennifer, updates on her continued cooperation, her slow adjustment to her new reality. They've taken down 3 major consortium operations based on my information, she told me during our most recent call, pride evident in her voice. 17 arrests so far. Hundreds of millions in assets seized. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely impressed. And you? How are you doing? She shrugged, the prison jumpsuit she still wore a reminder of her circumstances. Taking it day by day. The security here is intense. Isolation from general population, guards vetted daily, no internet access. But I'm alive. Working. Making a difference. Any word on sentence reduction? Early days yet, she said. But my attorney, my real attorney, FBI appointed, says there's potential for significant reduction if my cooperation continues to yield results. That's something to hope for, I offered. Victoria smiled, a genuine smile that reminded me of the daughter I'd known before the Cunninghams, before the embezzlement, before the murders. Hope is more than I expected to have at this point. I'll take it. After our call ended, I walked along the beach, contemplating the strange path that had led me here. From that humiliating family dinner to winning the lottery. From Victoria's betrayals to her redemption. From Eleanor Blackwood, grieving widow, to Catherine Miller, protected witness. Life had not turned out as I'd expected. Not even close. But there was a certain justice in how events had unfolded. Howard and the Cunningham criminal empire were being dismantled. Victoria was making amends in the most meaningful way possible. And I had found a kind of peace in this simple, quiet existence. The lottery money, what remained after legal fees and setting up my new life, sat in accounts under my new name, waiting for whatever future might emerge. Perhaps someday, if Victoria's sentence was reduced, if the consortium threat diminished, we might use it to build something new together. A legitimate business. A foundation. Something to counterbalance the harm that had been done. As I turned to head back to my cottage, I noticed a figure standing on the bluff above the beach. Tall, gray-haired, watching. Jason Keller. I hadn't seen him since that day in the park, hadn't heard from him since Victoria and I entered witness protection. I made my way up the path to where he stood, wind whipping at his jacket. "How did you find me?" I asked, not entirely surprised that he had. "I have resources," he replied simply. "Don't worry, if I can find you, it doesn't mean they can. I'm particularly motivated." "Why are you here?" "To deliver news," he said. "And a warning." I tensed. "What news?" "Derek Cunningham died yesterday. Complications from his injuries, officially. And unofficially?" Jason's expression was grim. "The consortium doesn't leave loose ends. even paralyzed ones in hospital beds. I absorbed this information, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Derek had been no innocent, but his death still represented another life destroyed by this tangled web of crime and retribution. "And the warning?" I asked. "They're still looking for you," Jason said. "For Victoria. The arrests, the asset seizures, they've hurt the consortium, but not destroyed it. Not yet. So we remain in hiding." "For now," he agreed. "But Eleanor, Catherine, whatever you're calling yourself these days, don't lose hope. Victoria's information is working. The organization is fracturing. In time, it may be safe for you both to emerge. Why do you care?" I asked directly. "After all these years, all that's happened, why are you still involved?" Jason smiled faintly. "Because Edward asked me to look out for you both. In that letter you never fully read. The postscript mentioned me specifically." "I read it," I corrected. "Whatever Jason has done, whatever mistakes he's made, he is not the villain of this story. Remember that when passing judgment." "Yes," Jason nodded. "Edward knew me better than I knew myself. Knew I'd eventually find my conscience again." He glanced at his watch. "I should go. I've stayed too long already." "Will I see you again?" I asked, surprised by how much I hoped the answer would be yes. "Perhaps," he said, "when it's safer. When more of this is behind us." He turned to leave, then paused. "Victoria is doing well, by the way. Her information is solid, actionable. She's making amends in her way." "I know," I said. "We speak regularly." "Good." Jason's expression softened. "Edward would be proud of you both, for finding your way back to what matters." As he walked away, disappearing down the beach access path where presumably a car waited, I thought about his words. Would Edward be proud? Of Victoria's crimes and her redemption? Of my choices, my compromises, my new life? I liked to think he would. That he would understand how we had both lost our way and found it again. How we had each, in our own way, chosen love over justice, then found a path that honored both. The family dinner that had started it all seemed like a lifetime ago. Victoria's cruel words. My secret lottery win. The humiliation that had sparked this entire saga. Go get a job and stop being such a burden. Such simple words to have initiated such complex consequences. Such a mundane cruelty to have unveiled such extraordinary truths. I turned back toward my cottage, the wind at my back, pushing me forward as the storm approached. There would be more storms to weather, literally and figuratively. More challenges. More adjustments to this strange new life. But for the first time since Edward's death, I felt truly alive. Purposeful. Connected to something larger than myself. The burden Victoria had named at that dinner had been lifted, not by money, not by revenge, but by truth. By facing the darkest parts of ourselves and choosing, finally, to walk toward the light. As I reached my front door, I glanced back at the beach one last time. No sign of Jason. No sign of my old life. Just the endless rhythm of waves against shore, reminding me that even after the most violent storms, the tide always returns to its natural pattern. And so, perhaps, do we?